Hello everyone, welcome back to Ask a Scientist Gaming, where we combine mediocre gameplay with expert science. I'm Ken Hansen, Associate Professor in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry at Florida State University. I do all things light matter interaction, photons driving chemical processes, but more importantly, joining me for the second time, is Dr. Sarah Hart. Sarah, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah, I'm a professor in the Department of Psychology in the Florida Center for Reading Research at Florida State University.
So what do you usually teach?
I teach, I'm currently teaching undergraduate behavioral genetics, and I've taught child psychology before, and I also teach at the graduate level developmental psychology and courses like that.
Nice. All right, so last time you were on the stream, you took down the white whale that is Super Mario Brothers 1. What are we playing today?
I still brag about that.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
You have video evidence.
I do have video evidence, and I did it in less than the time.
Yes, exactly. So this time we're taking on
Super Mario Brothers 3.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, Sarah, let's dive in.
Let's go.
Bronco, welcome back to the stream. Did you pick a grad school yet?
It is that time.
Mm-hmm. It's coming up, April 15th.
April
deadline.
15th, big deadline.
Yeah.
I know I'm seeing a lot of students start to, on Twitter talking about where they're accepting and where they're going. It's exciting.
It's exciting, but stressful for us as well.
It is. I actually have somebody I made an offer to who just flew to town tonight. She actually might just be in town right now to come visit to decide if she wants to come here for a PhD.
Did you tell her about the stream?
I didn't.
Because this is street cred.
Because this is like...
street cred. Yeah.
This would have been a huge recruitment tool. I don't know why I didn't think of it.
I gave a talk at University of Alabama, my first departmental visit like 2 weeks ago, and I put a plug of this at the end. And it was like, after that, the Q&A like lightened up a lot. Like I was like less threatening because of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's something interesting.
I know my kid.
UMass Amherst. Congratulations, Bronco.
Nice.
Yeah. He's deciding between FSU and Amherst. He's at FSU right now, so you made the right choice going somewhere else. Not in terms of talking shit about FSU, but I don't know about you, but I encourage people to diversify and life experience.
Yeah, if you can. I mean, it's hard to move for your life, but
But if you have the opportunity, I'd recommend it. Like I've been around like from LA to Minnesota to North Carolina to here. I'm happy with the experience.
Well, the savvy listener would have heard me call it Super Mario Brothers. And maybe figured out where I'm from.
Yeah, no, you're international. So.
I am.
Kind of. Like
Is.
Most of Canada, like 99% lives within 100 miles of the U.S. border or something, or like it's a small number.
I think it's 100. I can't remember if it's kilometers or miles. I don't remember what perspective they take on it when they say that, but it is something like 90% of the...
You've been poisoned with American units yet?
I haven't. I moved here in 2005, so...
Well, it's interesting, though. Canada, you use pounds and inches for height, right?
Yeah, it can be very confusing to people.
Yeah.
And, we follow, like, American dates notation. Oh, that was bad.
Oh, the month, day, year.
Yeah, we do that.
It's nonsensical, but we all do it.
But yeah, then we do kilometers and Celsius.
Oh yes, Bronco. So Sarah, what are we drinking tonight?
We are drinking a dry Riesling.
So, cheers, ladies and gentlemen.
Cheers.
Bronco just did the drink command. It's 2 Paddocks Dry Riesling 2019.
It is. I got it from a local wine shop here in town.
Plug 'em?
Yes, it's called Hummingbird. It's
This stream brought to you by Hummingbird.
Yeah.
That is
and
not true.
And a wine tasting that I did that included this wine. And I love a dry Riesling. And it is actually incredibly difficult to find one here in Tallahassee. I hate this guy. I have no idea why it seems to be very hard. And also dry Rieslings are weird because they're normally just noted as Riesling. And you have to ask, is this dry or sweet? So whenever I get a chance to buy some bottles of dry Riesling, I do that. And that's what this is.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing it because I'm excited. It's one of the things we do on stream. For those of you not familiar, I drink whatever the guest wants to drink. So it's been a mix of beer, tequila, mixed drinks, and wine. So yeah, I know. A Wednesday night taking tequila shot.
I did think I recently, I bartended for years.
Yeah.
And I recently got back into that because, COVID is still occurring. I'm like, what next can I do?
Yeah. Hobbies.
And so
Drinking's a hobby.
getting back into like mixology stuff, and so I bought tons of different liquors, and I've been going through it like a bartending.
Drinking is not a boring hobby, presumably. So I'm gonna link this article. I put it up in Discord, but it's a recent. What journal is this? I don't remember.
Journal of Personality and Social Psychology.
Social Psychology. So yeah. Relevant to our interests. It's basically looking at what people perceive as being the most boring and least boring occupations, hobbies. I don't know what else was.
Or it was like, what makes somebody the most boring person?
Yeah.
And it describes many an academic. I don't know about you, but I'm wildly fascinated.
Yeah, absolutely. Super interesting.
Super interesting.
Yeah. When I'm in an airplane and I tell someone a chemist, they don't say, oh, I hated that class. They don't say that regularly.
Never. Yeah, I don't say psychology because...
Oh, God, then you get the baggage.
Everybody assumes...
Yeah, abnormal.
Yeah, it's going to be clinical.
Yeah. Well, going for the flute, nice.
I was trying to
As a
decide if I
veteran.
was going to do it.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me on Twitter if I was going to go for the flute or not.
So you skipped the first one. I don't know if you know that. It's the third level.
No, I don't.
Oh.
I don't remember. I know, I'm telling you, I'm just going by muscle memory.
Yeah,
Years of playing this game, so I'm not thinking much.
curious.
I'm just doing it.
I was impressed you got that one, though.
I did remember that one.
Are you going to use it, or are you going to play straight through? Because you 100%ed Super Mario 1, which means you played every level.
Are you trying to say that I'm not going to have street cred if I do use it?
Is that either way? It's totally up to you.
No, but like, what do real gamers say?
I don't know. Does anyone in chat have an opinion?
I can't call it a real beating the whole game and brag to my kid that I did that.
So my speed run in the original Mario Brothers is with the warps. Like, I don't do warpless in that, so I can't claim any commitment to the nonstop game.
I do like to show that video to people now, and I tell them that I know you.
It's a good video. It's fun. We hang out. We get to drink, play games. Ooh, calm down, Broncos. Starting big with the science questions. By the way, if anyone has any science questions, Sarah and I will shoot the shit all night. But if you guys have questions, we are happy to answer them. So put them in chat now. Calm down, Bronco wants to know. Starting off with a big question. Do you feel nature or nurture has a higher impact on development? The hardest question in your field.
And a very controversial question.
Yeah.
And it really kind of depends on the perspective, I guess. I remember the last time I was on, we talked about this a little bit, right? I say being in my field being kind of, that was embarrassing.
That's okay. You have infinite lives.
Being a behavioral geneticist, which is like the formal name of my field, I say that it makes me feel like a more calm parent because that kind of one of the more important decisions I made is who I decided to have share genes with my kid. I have to remember how to talk and play this game at the same time.
No worries. Infinite lives.
So they both are important, and really kind of the key of what makes it so complicated is that they really interact quite a bit. And influence each other, they being nature and nurture, or genetic and environmental influences. There was a kind of a famous theorist in our field in the 80s who wrote a book that said, parents don't really matter, that the major influence on children is actually major environmental influence is their friends. And less so parents. And in general, it seems like potentially some of the data does support that, but it is really hard to.
So that's the nurture aspect, parent versus friend. Like the parents have the genetic.
Yeah,
people
if
are
nurture,
dumb.
the extent to which
Okay.
nurture matters, which for
Yeah.
some traits, I study not only nature and nurture, but I study it in kids and how they learn how to read and do math. And for that, right, reading and math and other kind of cognitive abilities, we have to explicitly instruct those skills, right? It has to occur through the environment. You're not just born a reader. And so, there's definitely an environmental component, and it matters, and it can push people kind of up and down, and like with their skills, like higher or lower, depending on their instruction. And so those, for what I study, environment definitely matters. And kind of the big question is what's the most important part. And a lot of parents, especially first-time parents, feel like they're the most important part. But the joke is, right, you believe in nurture until you have your second kid, and then you believe more in nature as a parent. Because you're like, I'm applying the same type of parenting to both kids, and they're so different from each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, they both really matter, and they both are just so intertwined that it's hard to say which is more important than the other, but genes are definitely important.
I mean, it's such an interesting nature versus nurture because it's all nature. It's just different levels of nature abstraction, right? It's this getting in the technicalities of it, because it's like Darwinian evolution. We can influence evolution, but we are the nature influencing evolution. Like if humans start developing a cow, we're just changing its local environment through our influence. So it's still nature. How do I want to say this? Like, so a lot of people are like, let's save the planet, and we're not saving the planet. We're trying to save us, right? Because the planet's going to be fine. Nature will live on. We're part of that formula, and if we disappear, nature will still be fine. So we are involved influencing our own outcomes.
Yes, that's why we say nature versus nurture because it's fun to say, and that's how it used to be. But it really is nature and nurture, and they're very intertwined in ways that make it kind of so complex that it's almost impossible to study.
But give me money.
Yeah. You should have heard me today. I taught this afternoon, and I was like, you're probably wondering why you're even taking this class, because I'm like ripping apart like the basic fundamentals, like this doesn't even matter.
It's honesty, at least.
It is, and it's just because is there something over here? I mean, I still do it. I still love it. I still think it matters. But there is a lot of controversy and a lot of disagreement. The extent to which you can, the direct results from like the type of work I do, like doing twin studies and using twins to identify what's genetic and what's environmental influences. There's a lot of controversy as to what we can actually say from those types of studies, and it kind of depends on where you are in that philosophical battle.
Within your lifetime, you're hoping for definitive answers. We're going to know enough of the human genetic sequence. And
well, that's that's where all the money is right now.
Yeah.
Money being like literally money, but also like, where all the bets are is that it will be, at first we thought once we did the Human Genome Project was successful that, we would immediately understand how genes influence everything. And that wasn't the case. But now it's, the newest genetic technology. Currently it's, genome-wide association studies and then polygenic risk scores, or what it's called. So that's how you kind of summarize across an entire individual's genome. You see what genetic variant they have in each place, and then you summarize kind of across their whole genome what, their score is as an individual for a given trait. And then you use that as a predictor to, can we figure out something about what your health is going to be like in 5 years? Can we use that to figure out how well a kid's going to do in school? That's kind of where the current technology is right now, and the current, where a lot of hopes are being placed.
It's intriguing and terrifying.
Yes, it kind of, Gattaca.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, and so Gattaca gets that. I think that's one of your questions you said you ask sometimes people, like what film gets your field wrong.
What gets it wrong and what gets it right? So Gattaca, you would say
that the idea that we might have a future where we look at genes and predicting something, it got that right.
Yeah.
I think the last time I looked up Gattaca, I think it came out in the late 90s. So the Human Genome Project was underway at that point, but wasn't completed. So maybe it was based a little bit on that.
In vitro fertilization is already doing this, right? Like they pre-screen for things like Downs and like
big chromosomal
things.
stuff,
But
even like sex chromosomes or something like that. Not how I describe it, like what we're interested in psychology. Complex human behaviors.
Yeah.
Things like what job you're going to take, to what your personality is going to be like, to if you're going to suffer from depression or more likely to have PTSD after a traumatic event, to me, like how is a kid going to learn how to read? Can we predict those things? So those types of kind of psychology human traits, they are not affected by big genes like that. They're what are called polygenic traits. So they're affected by many genes, like hundreds of thousands of genes, of very small effect. And I can't talk and do this at the same time. Well,
yes, you can. 2 up. We'll take that.
and so but there is a company or a couple companies, I think, that are starting to try to screen for that type of stuff with embryos. But they are, that's really premature.
Yeah. So I'm listening to an audiobook right now called Hacking Darwin. I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's looking into that, like genetic engineering and where the next steps are. And it talks about and it basically, the storytelling is really fun because it basically does it chronologically, projecting into the future what you think is going to happen. Because we're just going to get better and better at recognizing point mutations as well as, gene clusters and what impacts they have. But like one of the major take-homes halfway through the book is it's probably always going to be a probabilistic model,
yes,
right? Where it's going to say there's a likelihood of this, and they'll give you percentages, and you can pick and choose accordingly. But
yeah, that's this idea, right? It's kind of coming out of what's called the Precision Medicine Initiative, right? This idea that we can use these polygenic scores as kind of summative score across your whole genome of what likelihood that might happen under these other circumstances, thinking about also what's happening in your environment and other lifestyle factors that might matter.
I mean, what I love about that, and I can't wait till, like, every scary sci-fi is based on whatever developing technology is most foreign at the time. And so genetic engineering has a touch of this, but I can't wait for the movie that's like just straight up monkey paw, where you select for a trait in a child and it ends up making them a serial killer. Because like you can't, like, I want a kid that's a leader, right? But leader combined with being some other characteristic all of a sudden has unfound, unforeseen consequences.
Yes.
And yeah. Probabilities are weird.
Oh, that was unnecessary.
That was for pride.
It was for pride. And where did that get me?
Icarus.
So, we talked about the things that Gattaca sort of got right, but there's an important thing that it did not get right. That is a common misunderstanding with a concept in my field. So my field talks, when we talk about nature, it's also called heritability. And that's this idea. What Gattaca got incorrect is they thought they could swab people at birth pretty much and say what you were going to be. And that's a deterministic viewpoint of genetics. That genes determine what you're going to be. And other than incredibly rare examples of chromosomal deficits and the like, that's not the case. So, no matter if something is completely genetic, if we say it's super heritable, genes really matter, it still doesn't mean you can't increase it through intervention or change it by intervention, or that, the kind of what will be different, based on environmental inputs. So that's where Gattaca got it incorrect. They assumed that what they saw genetically at birth was a directly translated to what people would be. And that's not how genes work.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. At some point, it's going to be able to like suggest someone would be a good swimmer or soccer player, and you could have someone lean that way. But you're saying it's never going to be 100% predictive.
No, but again, like you said, the probability and but the key with Gattaca is they then like,
yeah, your life is determined.
Killed, or that was the like science fiction part of it, right? Oops. You know, that they never thought that any kind of intervention. So like when I'm interested in thinking about like how could we use what we know about genes to kind of to I use the very word that I said it's not. How can we use genes to kind of probabilistically predict, right? Yeah. That you have a higher chance of struggling to learn to read. And that's useful because we have good reading interventions when applied young can be very effective, but are not as effective when you're older. And so kind of early screening is important in my field, and early finding out what kids are going to struggle to learn to read. So, you know, can genes help us do that even earlier? Because currently most of our screening is you have to be starting to learn to read before we know you're going to struggle with reading.
Yeah.
And so, you know, genes might tell us information earlier than before a kid even, you know, is old enough to be instructed in reading. You know, it would still be probabilistically, it would be, you know, we could, you know, that this kid might have a chance of this, so let's keep a closer eye on them. Let's screen them a little bit more. Let's see how they're doing, you know, and potentially do maybe slightly, you know, more intensive instruction or intervention with them before, you know, we've waited for them to fail. That's kind of how I think about it. Not that they're not going to become a reader and we should stream them out of school or something like that. That's just not how it works.
Not yet.
No.
So dystopian.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends who's in charge and how much they believe one thing over another. Like Lysenko in Russia, not believing Darwinian evolution caused 1 million deaths because they didn't interpret the science correctly. Like, yeah, this could be used for good or bad. All right, Bronco, going back to lighter-hearted things, or maybe not. As a parent, what are some of the best methods for educating your kids academically? I'm worried about being a future tiger parent when it comes to academics.
Yeah, you know, you know, they talk about like reading to your kid is super important, and it's, you know, not that you need to teach your kid to read yourself, but that, you know, language is really important. So using kind of language around your kid. Reading helps parents use more complex vocabulary and maybe, you know, words that they wouldn't necessarily say. That's why reading is a useful way to get language out of parents. So kind of things, talking a lot around your kid it's pretty important. Being predictable and not withdrawing love is also a good idea. But otherwise, you can go like deep. I'm trying to remember which way I want to go in this. I know one way I do not like.
50-50. Probabilistic.
Yeah, probabilistic. Gimme. You know, like the internet is a deep, dark place for new parents. Did you stumble into the internet as a new parent?
As in people making comments on how you should raise your child?
Yes, and yeah. Like all the, you know, which is kind of...
It's a cesspool. It
is a cesspool. Kind of, you know, I don't like you. This refers to like a gender that's not necessarily a care, but it's often like I think about it like mommy blog kind of thing. Yeah, you know, like how can or Pinterest, you know, like how can you outdo this and how can you make it, you know, your kid's room prettier and the most every single moment of your parenting has to be engaging and educational and, you know, oops, I forgot I'm supposed to do this.
Yeah, there's several subreddits dedicated to insane parents and like, yeah. Oh, nice. I did not remember that was there.
I did not know that either. But there's like a POW somewhere, isn't there?
There's a P, I think it's the middle one right there.
Oh, I have the flying now. So
Cuddle Puppy, withdrawing love might as well be the title of my childhood biography. Sorry to laugh at that.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I don't take anything Cuddle Puppy says seriously. I hope that's not true for your sake.
Okay, I hope that is there's some pretty good evidence that that's a bad idea to do to kids, but otherwise, yeah, generally it is actually pretty hard to mess up kids. Withdrawing love, abuse. I don't recommend corporal punishment. That's usually never done in a loving, appropriate way, and there really is no loving, appropriate way to do it. So,
I mean, that's pretty definitive, right? That causes like later violence and aggression, and like it's that's known at this point.
I actually don't know if there is I just don't know. Like, I really don't know if there is a link between that and later violence. I think it's more just you were, it's withdrawing love, right? You're showing your kid that they can't trust you, and that you may hurt them when you're supposed to be the one that doesn't hurt them.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
So yeah. So how do you feel about the tiger mom strategy that they've mentioned? I don't know if you've seen, like, there was a book that was very controversial like 3 or 4 years ago. Mom's like, oh, all my kids went to Harvard, and here's what you need to do to raise your child.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that will likely be successful. Your child might have an anxiety disorder afterwards.
Oh man.
Not saying that causes that. I'm not going to say that, but
yeah, I mean, do you follow up on any of the, like, there's all these child savants, right? By the time they're 8, they're entering college, and like, you don't hear about them winning Nobel Prizes typically. Like, I mean, is there any studies into that? I'm sure there are, but are you familiar with any?
There is. There's, I'm not super familiar with that literature, but there is a really famous study that has been run out for years, like 30 years at Vanderbilt. A group of researchers there look at high intelligence individuals, and they, this is where I don't know the American context that well, because I didn't go to high school here, but there's like some tests that a lot of kids take. Not like SATs, but like some merit tests or whatever that you can be like super, super high on this like math test. And they follow, I don't know if kids still do it, but they followed the sample for like 30 years or something like that. The kids that scored in the upper like 1 percentile of the whole population to see, what happened to them. And, they usually are very successful and happy and things like that. But I don't fully know the results of that study.
Oh, that's interesting. Cuddle Puppy actually read the Tiger Mom book. And said it was misconstrued by the media. Initially, she was a tiger mom, but realized she had to be less strict and give her daughters more freedom, and it worked out better for them.
Okay.
So, that's awesome. Happy ending.
Yeah.
All across the board.
And I mean, also I wonder too that like that. Often that type of, the tiger mom, right? That type of parenting is ascribed to more Asian cultures or some Asian cultures.
Yep.
And, there's a cultural difference there. And, that when applied in a different,
nice.
And it maybe in a more American culture where, it's not fully supported or the same way, that it may have a different impact on kids too.
Maximinimus, what country did you go to high school in?
I was in Canada. In Ontario. I grew up just outside of Toronto. I can say out and about.
About?
But I study twins. So I study MZ and DZ twins, monozygotic and dizygotic twins.
Do you have the like Minnesota, it's hunting? It's not hunting, it's hunting.
Hunting? No.
You cut off the G at the end. That's not.
No.
We're not close enough there.
Well, I'm also from close to a city, so I don't have a thick Canadian accent. Even to start with, I didn't have one, and now I've been in this country for so long that I've mostly lost mine.
Was the schooling much different?
It was. So to give you an example, I think that's middle one. Yeah. Oh, do I need that? I had 5 years of high school. So when I was in high school, I was the second last year to do what was called OAC, Ontario Academic Credits. And that was the 5th year of high school. You could graduate high school in 4 years, but if you wanted to go to university, you had to graduate in 5. You had to take the 5th year. So we were all like 19 when we went to university, and drinking age is 19 as well, which is, I think, a better choice for students. And so it was more focused on I have to say high school is probably pretty similar. I laugh that how we learn about World War II is very different in the Canadian context than the American
There's
context.
significantly less brainwashing in Canada.
Yeah, well, I think we have our own. You guys really focus on the Western Front.
Yeah.
And surprise, surprise, there was actually a big Eastern Front that you did not join the war for many years over.
Russia won World War II. But if you ask an American, that's not a true statement. Like, let's be honest.
Well, but in Canada, we talk about how Canadians won World War II. So that's our propaganda. We were pretty big on the beaches of Normandy.
No,
it was pretty big, yes. So we learned that differently in Canada in high school. But really the big difference, I would say, is when I went to undergrad, liberal arts did not exist in Canada. And so I went immediately into, I got accepted into what's called the faculty. That's a college here in the US, the Faculty of Science. And I immediately took classes. I was a pre-med major at the time. Huge mistake. And I immediately took classes in that content area and took very few liberal arts classes. I could take, we took 5 courses a year. So a lot of our courses were full year courses. And one of those a year could be something outside my major. So we took a lot of in-depth classes. And when that meant is when I came down to the US to go to graduate school, I started my PhD in the US, I would have what now reflecting as kind of the equivalent of experience of maybe a master's student at that time. I had written multiple research papers. I had done my own research project. I had taken a ton of in-depth classes, multiple, I keep doing that, multiple stats classes, those sorts of things. They have since gone to a liberal arts model in Canada.
All right. To follow up on that discussion, Cuddle Puppy, did you learn about U.S. Executive Order 9066?
No.
That one's very specific. Actually, this one's pretty dark. This is where they put Japanese in internment camps during World War II.
Oh.
Yeah, this is a very real thing.
No, yeah, that whole history, to be honest, it's not talked a lot about in Canada. It's not, I'm sure some places do, maybe more on the West Coast than the East Coast of Canada where I grew up, I grew up in the center.
I mean, in your defense, it's not taught within the U.S. either. So, which is presumably why Cuddle Puppy brought it up. Yeah, Japanese Americans, American citizens with Japanese ancestry, they were considered a threat and put in internment camps. So, yeah.
That was that focus on the Western Front, right?
Yep.
That was the biggest evil.
Yep.
Which I knew very little of that whole part of the war until I moved here.
That's interesting. All right. On a lighter note, Cuddle Puppy, what's your opinion on hygiene hypothesis in regard to the prevalence of allergies? Might be a little outside of your
It is outside, but I thought it was pretty settled. I thought that was fairly settled science. That's my understanding.
As far as I know, yeah.
No,
our kids are disease monkeys. We're all for it.
Yeah, me too. And I'm wondering with COVID stuff now and kind of our increased use now of sanitation techniques, whether we're going to see that again of with what happened, with allergies and what was it, the 80s, 90s or whatever it was.
Yeah. So pre-COVID, I saw a study that said if you have 2 kids in daycare, there is basically every 2 weeks, someone's going to be sick. It's any given week, there's a 50% chance someone in your 4-person household will be sick.
Wow.
But during COVID, that went down for us a lot. The kids were wearing masks in daycare, and it got rid of a lot of that transmission.
I know. A lot of it, I'm can you believe we used to give each other colds?
Yeah, exactly.
I spent a lot of time thinking about that.
Yeah.
We took our kid to Orlando and did that whole thing over spring break for the first time.
Yeah.
We had never taken him there. And yeah, I came back and I got sick. So we came back on the Thursday, and the Sunday I got sick. And I was I have gotten COVID. I haven't had it yet. Triple vaccinated, hadn't got it. I'm I've gotten COVID. As it turns out, you can actually still get colds.
True.
Who knew?
They
The
still
cold
exist.
virus still exists.
Still exist.
I had a cold. I was shocked myself.
Yeah, that's crazy. Did you guys go to Disney or anything?
We did one day at Disney and
park,
one day
yeah.
at Universal.
I mean, Disney handled it pretty well, right? They were masks inside, and they were.
Yeah, and they still like titrate how many people can get into the park.
Yeah, I mean, of all the companies, they seem to they have such a public image to protect. Like, I get it. They did well.
Yeah, when we were there, the masking was done, but
Yeah.
and it was done. Let's just say that.
But you go to a Publix in Tallahassee, it's a very different story.
It's also done.
Yeah. Well, now it is. Even during peak, though, it was a mixed bag.
Yeah, it was.
So, Cuddle Puppy brings up 1936 Olympics with Jesse Owen being basically blackballed in the U.S., but Hitler congratulated him. Yeah. We don't teach honest history. Like, so your kid's 7. So what is that, first grade now?
Yeah, he's in first grade.
So have you had to do a parent-teacher conference yet?
One,
Yeah.
but that's it because his teacher went on mat leave and the substitute, I guess, doesn't have to do them.
I see.
But it was on Zoom, not in person.
But I'm very curious, like, Pledge of Allegiance is a screwed up thing. Like,
As this Canadian, I'm like, what the heck is this?
yeah, yep. Like, we do a lot of backwards things. Pledge of Allegiance, DARE program, the drugs, and like,
Which,
it doesn't, it's bad. It makes it worse. Like,
what you did is you got a bunch of kids together and told each other how to drugs better.
yeah. And not only that, but they scaled it in a very arbitrary way that like heroin and marijuana were equally bad. Like all drugs are bad. And that's where you kind of leave that dialogue. It's such a stupid way to teach things.
Yeah.
And it's foreshadowing Narc. Yes. Sarah has not played Narc, but she has agreed to play Narc.
I have. I don't know it.
We're going to win the war on drugs tonight. So you don't know that. That's the plan.
I know what my brain looks like on drugs.
That's awesome. You've done functional MRI scans. And,
No, I mean from the eggs.
Rachel Lee Cook. She was Canadian, wasn't she?
No,
She
I don't
did,
know that much detail. I just know the infomercial.
Yeah. No, she was in what the hell was that movie? She's All That. Remember these 90s romantic comedies? Yeah, that was her start. I think she was either Canadian or from Minnesota, but
Okay.
that's why I would know it. But yeah.
I did not
Narc,
know that.
That's your brain.
Okay.
That's your family on drugs.
Yes.
That's your animals. I don't know what else it had. But that's fun. Foreshadowing Narc.
So have you had anybody else on here twice?
I have. So I had Justin Kennemer, Polymer. Well, they're mostly chemists. And so last minute fill-ins, I typically turn to my chemistry colleagues because I can literally walk down the hallway. But
Okay.
I've had Eugene DePrince on twice, Justin Kennemer, David Collins.
Okay.
And that is, I think that's it. So yeah, I tried to cycle through at least 1 year between, but it depends again on...
Yeah, so when we figured out, I was October 2020. Oh,
Yeah. Well, so I tried to have you on in January, but you had a deadline, a grant deadline.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that's why I got shifted back.
Yeah.
I mean, getting faculty scheduled is no trivial task. Cuddle Puppy, worst part about the drug war is that it encouraged murder. Yes. And it's done a lot of things. The war on drugs has put a lot of money in certain people's pockets. It's increased crime. It has not stopped drug use.
No, and instead it's like jailed black men, right?
Yep. Yeah. It's been a controlling strategy.
Yeah.
That's depressing. All right. Sorry, we'll come back. I really wanted to have on George Peste. He's charge of the criminology program at FSU, the whatever center that is. I don't remember the name of it, but he does not video game. I would have loved to have him on playing some Narc. Anyway, Max Minimus wants to know, Professor Hart, what is the most surprising lesson from twin studies?
That is a great question. I'm trying to not get killed by them.
I guess that could be most surprising for you or most surprising for the community, or...
Yeah, I guess, you know, kind of outside of my own work, but more broadly from the broader literature, there's yet to be a trait that we've looked at with a twin study that does not show that genes don't matter, at least in a little bit. So it's so much so that it's been called the first law of behavioral genetics, is that everything is at least a little bit heritable.
That is interesting.
Yeah, so I think for a while, and that includes things that you would think.
Nice.
I am terrible at this board, if you hadn't noticed.
Oh.
Should I be trying to get this? I don't remember.
Probably. I think that's
No.
No, that was.
So yeah, so even things, there was a famous study, infamous, how about we call it infamous?
Oh, and the fireball at the end. Harsh.
That tore apart my field a little bit, but somebody in my field published a study that, like, TV watching is heritable. And why it tore apart our field is that a lot of people said that wasn't interesting, and why do that study? And it was like giving the field a bad, like, name, you know, just because you can figure out if something is, like, genetically driven or heritable, should you? But I think what it ended up doing is more just showing just literally how everything has a little bit of genes. If you ask a person, or if you have a person answer a questionnaire with pen and paper or on Qualtrics or, you know, online, you know, if you interact with a human and ask them about, or figure out something about that human, it will show a little bit of genes. That genes matter, just, you know, even just a little bit, but in reality it's often a lot. I am not gonna hit that.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's no advantage in you hitting that unless you want to stand there.
Oh, I'm a terrible jumper.
So I have a pretty amazing cheat code for this if you want to do that later.
To get through this board?
To get through any board. Do you want to see it?
Yeah.
Kinnerly, thank you for the follow. Thank you for joining us on Ask a Scientist Gaming. Our guest today is Dr. Sarah Hart, a developmental psychologist who's happy to talk about anything learning math, nature versus nurture, cognitive development. She is an expert in all those things. So throw your question in chat, which it's already there. Thank you for the follow. We'll get to that really quick. I'm going to show Sarah a really fun cheat code. It's called multi-jumps. This is a gratuitous code. Go ahead and start. Okay, jump up in the air and press jump again. Oh. Just keep. Yes.
I was so high up in the air I couldn't even see myself.
It's a little unfair.
That is unfair. Is this a Game Genie cheat code?
It is.
You know, I had Game Genie back in the day.
Well, I don't remember these codes didn't exist back then.
Oh.
It was, people have deconstructed the game so much that you can get a code for basically anything.
No way.
Like my brother wrote Game Genie codes for Narc because we played it enough. He's like, this part sucks. We should put a Game Genie code in.
No.
So yeah, you can do it. But we can turn it off if you don't like it. Or beat this level.
Where am I? Oh! I put everybody into their misery.
Yeah.
Watching me struggle with that level.
All right. Well, I'll turn it off, and if you want it again, it is there.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to show you one more, but we'll get to a question. So yeah, the most interesting thing from the twin studies is that everything has a genetic component. That was the...
Yeah, pretty much anything we can measure or have participants report on.
That's crazy.
Man, you remember when you had a kid brain and you could remember all of these things?
Yeah. I mean, we could look up. There's like 6 maps if you really want to.
I don't remember where anything is anymore.
Yeah.
Just saw that. Nope. That was not where I saw
So I'm going to show you one more Game Genie code just for fun before we dive into Kinnerly's question.
Okay.
So go into the level. So are you familiar with Hammer Mario?
Yes. Hammer Mario does not exist on this game, right?
No, it does. It's in one particular place, so you very rarely get it. You can kill Bowser in like 3 shots with this. And so this is how speedrunners play the game, but it's not easy to get. But no.
You can't lose it either.
So yeah, cheat codes are fun sometimes. Any video game purists, avert your eyes because we were just bastardizing.
Yeah, they're horrifying.
But I figure for this level, it's acceptable because this is a.
Can I get rid of it?
Nope. So yeah, you're beating this game tonight, no matter what.
I don't know if I.
Ah, nice, sniped.
No, I love how I'm like, no, I'm going to be a purist and not use the whistle, and then.
Wow, you clipped into the wall. It's actually a speedrun strategy.
Is it really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I figured out something the last time we played in Mario 1 that I didn't know existed.
You clipped through a fire bar.
That's right.
Yeah, I remember that very distinctly. That broke the rules. All right, I'm going to turn off Sledgehammer Mario. We're back to regular purist, but no, they're there if you want them. All right, Kinnerly wants to know, I'm not sure if this is in your wheelhouse, but what are some methods women can use to help with postpartum depression?
You should definitely seek medical intervention. And I say this not as a clinician, but I know that that is a real clinical problem. And it's like antidepressants, therapy, antidepressants, or what's going to work. And if you have a history for women who, haven't had a kid, or, a partner who is a partner to somebody who is going to have a child, if that person has had a past with depression, then they're more likely to have a postpartum depression, or have like a family. Whoa!
Oh,
did not know that I could do that, and I don't think it's that one, is it?
A glorious weapon.
And so that's why they screen for it now at pediatrician offices and at your 6-week postpartum.
Screen for it. So they have a questionnaire that's...
They do, and they usually have... they ask partners as well.
So you work in this questionnaire world, and it seems like, at some point there's going to be machine learning that's going to diagnose people through answering questions and responding to things like that. Like, in any of your questionnaires, you presumably have control questions where someone can't just answer yes on everything, or like someone's making up answers if they answer this a certain way. Is that a common practice?
It's not common. So that's used in 2 areas that I know of. It's used for online questionnaires. So like people who ask, like, if you've heard of like Prolific, where you can like make money doing questionnaires. They do that to check to make sure people aren't just like speeding through.
Yep.
I don't remember how to do this, if you can tell. And so they will put fake questions in there for that, just to make sure that you are paying it. They're called attention checks, to make sure you're paying attention.
I see. So they're real answers.
Yeah.
I guess I was thinking more along the lines of like, someone that's addicted to painkillers, right? They can answer a series of questions and lie and try to get pills. But there's certain questions you can ask that shouldn't be answered yes to. And if they do, it suggests something.
Yeah. So there's the attention check, and then there's for personality tests. There's what's called the lie scale. So like a really famous personality inventory, maybe like the key one, has this lie scale. Oh, thought I went in the door. And so it's like hundreds of questions on this personality test, and one set of those items are things like, I don't know the exact questions, but it's just, for example, things like I never gossip, or I never think bad about somebody, or I'm never unhappy. Right? Things are just actually not true of anybody.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody has a little bit of that stuff. And these types of questions. And so so depending on your responses to those questions, that's the lie scale.
I see.
And so they take that into account for the rest of your questions, because some of those questions are like, they can ask questions that were like linked with like psychopathology or sociopathy. There are people who are trying to lie to cover those things. And so that's why they have those questions on those scales. The type of work that I do, this is just not really a thing.
Yeah.
We're worried about what's called social desirability sometimes. So like, I ask parents how much they read to their kids. it's a common question in my questionnaire. If you're a participant in my study, you're probably asked at least once, how do you read to your kid, at what age do you start reading to your kid, how many books, how long, that kind of stuff. And there's a social desirability to that, because many people know now, right?
Oh, same thing. Sorry.
Maybe I'll learn my lesson this time
perfect.
and do something different. And so you have some concerns that people will say that they read to their kid even if they don't, because they know they're supposed to. Yeah. But parents get busy and stuff, and they don't necessarily, or they find it boring. I have friends that are reading researchers that find it boring to read to their kid, and that's okay. But some people might feel the need to respond to questions in a survey, like even though they don't do it, to respond that they do it. Mm-hmm. Almost forgot again. But I gotta tell you, I'm very rarely concerned about it. Most families in my study and most parents and most kids, they respond honestly. Oh my gosh. And so, and I have big samples. So the few that might do, oh my, that's embarrassing.
No worries.
Oh, I gotta die. So I don't. Very long story short, I don't.
So they don't have a lot to gain by lying in your survey.
There's literally nothing to gain. They're filling out the questionnaire in their home most of the time. I send it over paper in the mail. And, they're going to get paid to do my study no matter what. Their kid is part of my study.
Yeah.
And then adding to the complexity of it is, don't forget, these are parents that have chosen to be part of my studies, right? They want to be part of science. They're normally parents of multiples. So they have sought out research that is specific to twins. They're not trying to lie in my questionnaires, or even stretch the truth on the questionnaire.
Mildly related story. I don't remember if it was you or Colleen, but when we were doing in-person Ask a Scientist, I told you guys about I'm having a kid, and I'm not going to say the first response, but you should sign him up for a study.
We're always looking for parents.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we did, actually. But we didn't have twins, so I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, we do have a local family registry here in Tallahassee. And there's great now, thanks to COVID, there's a lot of online testing of kids.
A lot of data.
Yeah, a lot of data. You can sign up. There's stuff online. You can, if you're a parent out there and you're interested in participating in research, your kid participating in research, a lot of them are paid studies that you do over Zoom or answer questionnaires.
That's awesome.
Might as well have your kid make some money for you.
So this is better, presumably. You get Excel data, right? You get spreadsheets rather than paperwork.
I don't actually do that kind of data collection. With my families, I prefer paper. We tried to ask, and now admittedly it was a few years ago. It was probably 5 or 6, maybe 7 years ago. But we asked our families if they would like to do our questionnaire online or if they want paper, and they overwhelmingly said that they would prefer to receive the questionnaire on paper.
Wow.
So I don't know why I keep just getting those. I do. So we just still send it in our questionnaires in paper through the mail to the twins in my twin study.
Oh yeah. So sorry, related to that point, online versus in person. So I did that study about item response theory to make general chemistry exams better.
Oh yeah, how'd it go?
Yeah, we published a paper on it. It made our things better. So Journal of Chem Ed, you guys can check out one of our articles on it. But I mean, we essentially had a COVID-induced case study where we had to go online, right? So I had a direct, 3-semester data set to compare previous exam versus upcoming exam. So for us, it didn't make a difference. I didn't do honor lock. I didn't do any of the cheating software of any kind. And the ability distributions, the equating questions, it all looked the same. In person, online, it didn't change much as far as my class went. So that was kind of fun.
That's great. So you've now changed Is everybody on the department on board with you?
No, that is a battle I am still fighting. But yeah, I do online testing now because it's just easier and they can do it from the comfort of their own home, especially with an 8 a.m. class. Like, that's my strategy now.
You teach at 8 a.m.?
Yep. 8 a.m. a 330 person class.
I used to teach at 8 a.m. I stopped doing it because actually that's a prime writing time for me. So.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I love the mornings. I bike in at like 6 a.m. and that's my window to work. But 8 a.m. is when General Chemistry 2 is taught. So.
Oh, like that's just when it is?
Yeah, that's one of the 2 sections in the off semester. Yep.
No way.
Yep. Yeah. Despite educational research saying below the age of 24, you shouldn't be having class before 10 a.m. or something.
I don't know what age it is, but there's pretty big effects in high school. I know that it raises standardized test scores really by a ton when you don't wake up so early.
Maximinimus wants to know, how much time do you 2 spend on reading literature?
Like, I don't know. How much time do you spend reading literature?
Research literature or casual literature? In terms of research, I read a lot of papers when I'm writing a proposal.
Yeah.
But outside of that, most of my reading is done in the form of peer review. Like, I get sent papers to review. I review probably 1 paper a week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, our papers are a lot shorter and easier to review than the stuff you guys deal with. But yeah, about 1 a week. And I'm okay with that because I keep up on the literature by being forced to do it. But casual reading, I have audiobooks while I bike to work. And that's the extent of it. So Sarah, how about you?
Almost the exact same answer. Yeah, it's funny. You tell your graduate students, right, read, go to the literature and read. And then when you get farther along, then you stop reading.
Yep. When you have to write something, you read.
Yeah, I read that. Well, Twitter's been helpful that way. I know you're still not a big Twitter user.
Yeah.
But seeing papers come across my Twitter feed.
Yeah.
Read those. But yeah, mostly peer review, or I'm an editor for 3 journals. So.
Oof. So you have to do the other end of it.
Yes.
How many papers do you deal with a week then, as an editor?
It really depends on the week.
Mm.
I think the biggest journal that I'm part of, I think I signed up for something like 15 papers in a year.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah. So that's the most that I've had to do. Because that is something up here, but I don't remember. That is some of my least favorite things to do.
Yeah, finding reviewers and emailing and deciding is not a fun job.
Yeah. So I signed up for a small workload.
It's kind of fun that you get to like be gatekeeper on certain aspects of what gets published and what doesn't.
I hate gatekeeping though.
Yeah.
I'm not a big gatekeeper. Yeah. I personally don't think that like I don't try to make decisions about like novelty or those kinds of things. I'm not really interested in that. I'm more interested in like, are the methods good?
Yeah.
Is the sample size big enough? Yeah. And if it is, then I think it deserves to be published forever.
Yeah, I feel bad for like the top tier journals that get 1,000 submissions every week. They have to decide, what's interesting, what will sell, our
those sorts of things.
Borderline magazines. What fraction of papers you review could be replicated?
I don't know if I know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I'm in a field of psychology, at least, that does not often talk about replication issues, but I am sure we have replication issues. This very specific subfield that I'm in, though, has always like behavioral genetics. Ooh, forgot where I was going. Has always had big sample sizes. So that has protected us a little bit from replication issues that have kind of plagued the whole field. But we've done other things as a field that we know now are not scientifically great that lead to a greater chance of getting a statistically significant finding. And I think we're just starting to reckon with that. And then also, I study broadly what I study is human individual differences, right? Why we're different from each other. And that mean like kind of every sample and every participant would necessarily by definition be different, and you wouldn't necessarily assume that the same effect is going to be in the same sample, a different sample I should say, that individual differences matter, and that you'll get different findings with different samples. Behavioral genetics, right? A heritability statistic, what we calculate what's genetic, that is necessarily a sample statistic. It represents what was happening to that sample of participants at that given time, at that context. And so you wouldn't necessarily assume that would be the same finding in a different sample, at a different time, in a different context. So then there's that. So that's not replicating, but it's not replicating because of replication crisis issues. It's not replicating because of, you wouldn't necessarily assume that every sample is going to have the same type of effect.
So there were some early journals in chemistry where part of the peer review process was to reproduce the experiment. And like you'd have to demonstrate it in your lab. And I guess they got a certain amount of budget to do that, or you were part of a community that was involved with that. But yeah, that was like legit. You had to do the experiment to peer review it, which is great. That doesn't exist anymore.
No. Wow.
But I mean, we have the same issue, and there's very subtle things that can give you remarkably different outcomes in chemistry. And so there was a project I was working on in grad school. The reaction was not working. You needed like iron filings or something like that. But you can buy a chemical from one supplier and it's made slightly differently than another supplier. Like not all molecules or compositions are exactly the same. If one uses a palladium catalyst to make it versus iron, you have a tiny amount of palladium or iron impurity. And so depending on the supplier you buy it from, you might get different outcomes. And those are the worst experiences because you rely on literature to say you can make it this way, and you buy it from the wrong supplier and you spend 6 months turning your wheels because it doesn't work the way it's published.
Wow.
So yeah, it's very it's not a common thing, but it's common enough to everyone has a story like that. Probably less than 100%.
That would replicate?
Yes.
100% it will be less than 100%.
Yes, 100% of the time it's less than all the time.
Yeah.
100% true.
But I am very positive that that's the case.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out, we don't have a lot of data of how big of a problem it is in my field and what the sources of those problems are.
I mean, it's hard to get funding to reproduce things. Like nobody wants to pay for that, right? It's not sexy enough. It's not groundbreaking enough. It's frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Got me. I think I may have always whistled out of this world. Is that
really?
possible? I'm like, I have no muscle memory for any of these levels, for any of these worlds,
Do you want
any of these.
superhero mode?
What superhero mode?
Hammer plus jumps. All right, go ahead. No, we're doing this for fun. We should throw up a prediction. It's been an hour and we haven't used any of these, so we should. So Sarah, which one do you want to do?
Oh, I don't know. You pick one.
Man. Which one? What's relevant to what we're talking about? All right, let's start with this one. This one's probably
I was going to say that. I was going to say that one based on also the first law of behavioral genetics, right? Everything's a little genetic.
Question is a larger genetic component. So this is correlation or causation?
No causation. My field does not do really any causation.
Okay, so no claims about cause. You're just saying if you look at genetics.
Yeah, from a behavioral genetics perspective, which is always just kind of what is the source of why people are different from each other.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you have your standard internet units, get ready to spend them. We're going to throw a prediction up right now. If you're not following us, click the follow button, get your 300 standard internet unit to gamble as you wish. These are useless for anywhere outside of Ask a Scientist Gaming, but it's fun nonetheless to guess on these answers or know the answers for those of you that are experts in the area. So the prediction is up. The question is, which one of these things has a larger genetic component, intelligence or height? And so we're not claiming causality here, just a correlation. If you were to study someone's genetics, does their genetic sequence correlate more with height or intelligence?
Yeah, if you were to study a group of twins, let's say for the twin sample and determine kind of what the estimate of heritability is, how much genes matter to that group at that time, in that context,
Intelligence or height? All right. So they have about a minute and 30. Oh. One of my daughters is unhappy. Just say you'll use machine learning and a blockchain and you'll fool some venture capitalist in paying for it. That is the buzzword right now, machine learning.
Oh my gosh.
All right, predictions. Which has a larger genetic component? Is it intelligence or height? It's like a superhero mode. Helps a little underwater.
What helps is that I don't worry about colliding in anything because I don't die.
Does not matter here. Oh, no one's going to take the dark horse answer? Oh, there we go. Somebody bet. There we go. Cuddle puppy. We have a 99% to 1 decision tree here. All right. You guys have about
so it
20
seems
seconds.
like everybody thinks they know, eh?
Yeah.
Everybody knows about intelligence, do they?
Oh, now you're going to bias it. You're influencing the outcome. All right. 10 seconds left. Make your prediction
Oh my
now.
God.
Height or
Are you
intelligence?
kidding me?
Which one matters more? Yeah, no, it wrecks them. It destroys Bowser. It takes like 30 shots with a fireball.
He wasn't even up. He was still down.
So, yeah, you're going to destroy the sword. All right, Sarah, which one is it? Larger genetic component, intelligence or height?
Height.
Height. So if you want to see the outcome here, 2.1K versus 40. That was a 1.02 payout to them.
So that was too easy of a question. I changed it today, I will admit that.
Yeah.
The initial question, actually, the much harder one to decide between, I didn't actually know the answer, and I tried to do a literature search on it, and there is no clear consensus.
Oh, the original one was eye color or height?
No,
Is that
hair
what it is?
color.
Hair color, that's what it was.
Hair color, yeah, they're both incredible, very genetic. I think what the issue was is that height. Remember, I told you that a lot of the kind of the human psychological traits we're interested in follow up what's called a polygenic form, like a genetic pattern. So lots and lots of genes of little effect. That's how height works. And so height is always our example in my field of like the most genetic trait that there is. But definitely hair color is very genetically driven, but I don't think it follows a polygenic inheritance pattern. So it's not the same type of trait as height is, or intelligence, or personality, or depression, or, what political, your political leanings or your religiosity. Those things are all polygenic. But hair color, there seems to be like fewer genes with some bigger effects that seem to matter. That was based on my very quick lit searching today.
That's interesting. And that was one I made up. I just picked an arbitrary thing.
Yeah.
So it turned out to maybe be an interesting question. That's fun.
Yeah, I realized, I was like, oh, it doesn't follow the same kind of genetic inheritance pattern. And if you all remember high school biology, the type of that polygenic inheritance that I'm talking about, that idea is a little bit like the Punnett squares that you did. So you would do Punnett squares to look at kind of like what genes you get from your parents. Generally, that's not exactly what I'm talking about, but generally, oh, I forgot about that.
God mode enabled.
Generally, that's the genes I'm talking about, and I lost track of what I was talking about. Yeah, but height is more like the psychology traits I'm interested in, and hair color is less like those psychology traits.
So if I remember correctly, you said last time height was the most predictable, or
most heritable.
Most heritable. Okay, so that's because we did the online calculator based on Debbie and I's heights and what height our children should be, and that's a good predictor as far as
I think they call it midpoint. So the average between the parents' heights, I think, is a good predictor of what your kids' heights are going to be.
All right, so 5'8", 5'9".
Yeah, but I often that's what I've heard. I've not looked at it because I've wondered sometimes. I'm 5'9" as a woman. That's tall for a woman, but my husband is 5'10", which is actually short for a man. And so does that then matter? Being one of them being tall for that, sex, does that? I don't know the answer to that. I do know that, so hair color, I think why hair color came up last time is that is a question that we ask, right? We have to figure out what's called the zygosity. So if twins in my sample, both, well, this is, are we ready for a factoid?
Somebody request a factoid. Sarah's about to drop knowledge bombs on you. You better pay for them. Pay for them with your imaginary.
I'm just going to sit quietly till somebody pays for them.
There we go. Bronco redeemed. Request a factoid. Drop the knowledge bomb.
Right, for a twin study, I need to know what twins are identical and what twins are fraternal. And you would think if you do not have twins or not a twin yourself, that this would be obvious. Oh, I do not remember how to get up there.
So you can grab those.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So many...
No, you can grab the wall.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
I really think I whistled through this level. I don't remember any of it. Good thing I got that one up. Gonna need that. Okay, let me start again. Somebody paid for this factoid and it's failing spectacularly. We cannot trust what twin parents or twins themselves to say if they're identical or fraternal twins.
They don't know, or
they often have been told incorrect information.
Wow.
And that is because there is a lot of misinformation being told to delivering obstetricians of what to look for in a twin. So for most twin families, it's the delivering doctor that tells them if it's identical or fraternal twins. And that they base that off of seeing how many placentas there are, or how many amniotic fluids, how many amniotic sacs there are. And there's a lot of misinformation to think that if you see 2 placentas or 2 amniotic sacs, then you can't have identical twins. And that's incorrect. And it's something like 1/4 to 1/3 of all identical twins are mislabeled by a delivering physician as fraternal twins.
Because of the different sac.
Yeah. So
it depends on when it splits then in utero.
Yes, it does.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And so we cannot trust what a twin family says.
So is the prevalence of that misdiagnosis going down? Because now they don't do like the in vitro studying anymore. They take from the bloodstream and you can get genetic testing.
Yeah, but that very rarely happens. A family still has to decide to do that.
That's interesting.
The
I mean, we did
genetic
it.
testing.
It's pretty easy to do at this point. I think it's more and more common. Can they diagnose fraternal versus identical?
No, well, I said that pretty confidently, but I should not have been so confident.
Worries.
I don't know the answer to that. They can tell, right, if you have a fetus that has a Y chromosome, you can tell that pretty easily. And so if you have, a fetus with the XX chromosome versus a fetus with an XY chromosome, then you are a fraternal twin. You cannot be identical. And so they might be able to tell that from the blood test. But otherwise, I don't know if they can do keep forgetting about that jumping thing. I don't know if they can do the zygosity testing, but otherwise for most families it's a normal birth, then you don't do zygosity testing. You don't do genetic testing, right? You just leave the hospital and it's what the delivering doctor said your twins are. So we can't trust that, and so we have to give a questionnaire or we do genetic work ourselves. But I do a kind of more budget with the questionnaire version, which is like 99% accurate. And it's 6 questions that we ask families to answer, or a parent to answer about their twins. And it's things like, I want to do it old school.
No hammers. I was curious. Nice.
Oh, I would have died. And so it's things like the twins' hair color is exactly the same, because that's a really good indicator of identical twins. Another good indicator of identical twins is even kind of close, immediate family members get them confused, get them mixed up. That's a good indicator that you have identical twins. But yeah, I've worked with twins before where the parents are like, they're fraternal, the doctor told us, and you're like, literally nobody can tell the difference between these 2 kids.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're identical. And they're like, nope, they look a lot alike, but they were told they were fraternal. Like, no, you were told wrong at birth. You have identical twins.
Wow.
And I sometimes get families in my study who email me and ask what the questionnaire said about their kids because they don't know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like it. All right. A bunch of questions to catch up on. Related to the height thing, have you studied malnutrition? It's also very relevant to height intelligence. North Korea, the case study of it's brutal. So it is a correlation with genetics up to some point.
Yes, and so those examples are prime examples of why we are not deterministic with genes. When we talk about things being heritable or genetics, mattering from a behavioral genetics standpoint, why you can't be deterministic, because something even so heritable as height, I mean, those are extreme examples, but like look at how much height has gotten better with nutrition getting better gotten better. We on average are taller as a population, is how I should have said that, in the last even 100 years because nutrition is getting better and is more available to all, better nutrition. So, an environmental input like nutrition can drastically change height outcomes, with height even, being as, 80 to 90% heritable in my models.
80 to 90% is still, I mean,
A lot.
That's
but
good.
it doesn't tell you anything about how you can intervene or change it.
And that relates to another comment here from Faithful Fairy about we've gene edited babies for AIV immunity. AIV? I don't know what AIV is, but why not giants? I mean, yeah, that's going to be an ethical question that is eminent.
It is, yeah, but you see, remember I talked about how these things are, polygenic, right? You're talking hundreds, if not thousands, and the genetic technology is not there yet to be able to change that many genes. I don't know if the AIV was the HIV example that happened in China. That scientist just got into jail this week, right?
Oh, really? That was this week.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what I heard on the news, or they said that he's about to.
Yeah.
So there is a technology called, I think it's called CRISPR.
Yep.
That can change, can make point mutation change or point changes on the genome.
Yep.
And there had been an international agreement that we would not do that yet until they figured it out. And he did it to twins. It was, that were born. And he edited out the risk factor for, and what was it exactly? He recruited families that had a parent with HIV. So that was also an ethical issue because these families are already, they're vulnerable.
Yep.
And so they edited out there. I guess there's a gene that makes you particularly at risk for HIV. Now I'm just ignoring things that can kill me.
God mode, it's going to your head.
Yeah, it is. I was trying to play it straight, but awesome. And he edited that out of these kids. And the big issue is that we have no idea what happens when you do that. And that's why the world scientific body had decided that we could not do that till we knew what the downstream implication of doing that in humans was going to be.
We still don't necessarily know.
No, we have no idea.
Yeah,
and those kids are going to grow up, we have no idea what's going to happen to them. We know they're going to probably not develop HIV, but what made that so is like there's effective treatments now. People are getting cured of HIV. So he did this experiment on individuals who did not consent to that experiment, and for parents who probably did not willingly consent, not openly consent.
Without duress.
And he didn't need to do it for that trait because there's the transmission of parent to kid for HIV is like zero these days.
Yeah.
With proper medical treatment, which those families should have had access to, which is why he went to jail.
It's one of those, the Jurassic Park quote, they spent so much time wondering if they could, they didn't ask if they should.
Yes.
And that was it. He was just committed. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, the Hacking Darwin book, in terms of the timeline of development, is the first step towards, it's not genetic engineering, but it would be like fertilize a dozen eggs and get genetic probabilities of certain outcomes.
Yeah.
And then you can bias it by selecting that. You can pick one that might be taller or has a 10% chance of being taller.
There is a company that is doing that right now.
Yeah. And so that's
a couple, I think, in the US. Yeah.
So that's the first step. And then when we figure out how to actually control it, because you're right, CRISPR it's a lot of point mutations. It can deal with that, but not,
it's not going to do hundreds or thousands. Maybe, probably the technology one day maybe can, but it's not there.
Yeah. Why not giants? We'll get there. All right. All right. Kinnerly. Actually, we had a first-time chat. Quinn, thank you for joining us. If you have questions for Dr. Sarah Hart, sorry, throw them in chat. We're happy to answer them. Thank you for joining us. Kinnerly wants to know, is psychopathy, sociopathy genetic? In twin studies where one twin is diagnosed with one of the two, does the other twin end up being diagnosed with the same thing?
Well, yes. So everything is genetic. I don't know much about that area, to be honest, but I can tell you, I can guarantee that a twin study would say that there is a genetic component. Because of what's called the first law of behavioral genetics, right? Everything is at least a little bit genetic or heritable. So yes, what that means then is if your identical twin, avoiding it. If your identical twin, has some sort of psychopathology, then you have a much higher chance of it occurring for you as well.
But it is not 100%. There's no.
No, and I don't.
It's unfair. Just unfair. Poor guy, trying to do his job. Someone comes in throwing hammers.
I just don't know the proportion of it because that's not my direct area, so I don't know exactly.
Yeah. No, you have to hedge your bets to some degree.
Yeah.
'Cause this will be on YouTube. Peer review. Cuddle Puppy, there's a story of a psychologist who learned he was a sociopath by scanning his own brain. I remember that story. It was a popular news story. That was like 5 years ago. It was based on functional MRI, I think.
But I would be surprised because I don't think that any brain scans are predictive enough to actually tell you meaningful outcomes yet.
I mean, that was an area that had huge reproducibility issues. The functional MRI, that was a disaster.
A big study just came out in Nature last week or a couple weeks ago about that again.
Of someone debunking someone else's study?
No, I was talking about their reproducibility issues in neuroimaging, with the specific type of neuroimaging, but they reference the molecular genetics field, right? So my field, human molecular genetics, but it was mostly the overlap with behavioral genetics. We kind of had a reckoning, right? We used to do what's called candidate gene studies. So we're like, this gene probably matters. And we did sample sizes of, a few hundred, or even, a few hundred to a few thousand, doing genome-wide association studies. So that's looking across the entire genome, what's correlated with outcome, whatever outcome you're interested in, and then look to see what genetic hits there are. And what we realized is that we were either getting false positives, that was the case for the candidate gene studies, or for the underpowered genome-wide association studies, we were getting nothing. And we realized that we had to scale up and make really, really, really big samples. And so what this paper was suggesting is that that's where neuroimaging is going to have to go as well, that they should follow the model of molecular genetics, human molecular genetics, and combine across sites and across data sets and create these consortiums that, that do, have thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions.
All right, so in chat, I put a link to this story. This is from 2013. Neuroscientist James Fallon was looking at brain scans of serial killers, part of his research project at UC Irvine, and he noticed the PET scans in this case. His PET scan resembled those of serial killers.
Okay.
So apparently, don't see the comment here, but Cuddle Puppy said the empathy brain cells didn't light up. I don't know if there's empathy brain cells, but there are regions associated with certain. But yeah, that's still a very controversial area.
I have a colleague that studies sociopaths.
Who's that colleague? Why haven't they been a guest on Ask a Scientist?
Yeah, well, that's the big problem. Having a colleague that studies something so cool in your department. Yeah. Everybody wants to talk to that person. His name is Chris Patrick. He's in our clinical psych area.
I see.
And yeah, he's pretty famous for that work. I think he interviewed like Jeffrey Dahmer and stuff. Like he's like the person that gets sent in to do these like interviews to do research on them. I like to make fun. We have a class in my department where students who are interested in doing honors work with a professor, they can take this class, and professors come in and they spend half the class. There's 2 professors per class that come in and talk about what research they're doing. Mm-hmm. So help me, it's like they're doing it just to mess with me.
You're the same. I
am always after that dude.
After too.
Always. And let me tell you, I'm like, I'm studying kids and research. And then he's like, I interviewed this serial killer and this serial killer and this serial killer and I'm the scientific expert on this Netflix show about serial killers. And then I am like,
you gotta open with those serial killers were once kids. Predict.
I just see, when you're losing a class.
Yeah.
I lose them immediately.
I just glossed over.
Yeah, and they're all on their computers emailing my colleague to get into his lab.
That's awesome.
I mean, look at even the questions tonight, right? It's the cool stuff. I get it,
Cuddle Puppy. Problem with studying sociopaths is you're going to eventually start studying your bosses or the people who donate.
Well, yeah, it's called research, right? And people do research. Well, at least in psychology, you do based on things that like affect you. Yeah. Do you talk about that in chemistry?
No,
probably not. Right?
I mean, some people do. Some people like study cancer because a parent died, or they have a prevalence, or things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a real thing in psychology.
Yeah, I believe it.
So yeah, research.
I mean, that crosses my mind. Like, if one of my kids was diagnosed with cancer, like I could do a U-turn in my research, and I could become a pretty legitimate expert in a couple years of committing to it. Like, would I do that? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, even look at our colleague in biology who set up, COVID happened, and he was a human geneticist, and he set up our COVID testing lab.
Yeah. Yep.
Who stopped all his research and opened
yeah, that's what he did. Yeah. For like a year.
I think it's long. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still doing it.
Still going on.
Yeah.
It's Jonathan Dennis, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was supposed to have him on at one point.
Oh, really?
Follow up with him.
You did, yeah. He has twins.
He has twins. So there's a database. What's the prevalence? So population in Tallahassee is what, 200,000, something like that?
I think maybe like closer to 300,000.
300, okay. What's the population of twins as far as you know? I guess you'd only know the kids then. No.
My memory.
No worries.
We say it's like it's like somewhere between like 1.5% and 2 or 3% of the population are twins.
Okay.
There are kind of ancestral lineage differences in twinning rates. So those with African ancestry, from African ancestry populations have a higher twinning rate. Closer to like 3% versus those from Asian ancestry populations. They have a lower twinning rate than European ancestry.
That's interesting.
So it kind of depends too a little bit on, ancestry does not map onto race the same way, but kind of what the local kind of racial composition of the place is.
All right, we should throw another prediction up. Which one do you want to do?
Well, I almost started to give the answer away to that one.
Should we do that one now?
Yeah.
We'll preempt it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine. We can give credit for people that pay attention.
I didn't quite say it. I didn't say it.
All right. All right, standard internet units. Let's do another prediction. This one, largest human genetic study to date. And so this is taking some kind of characteristic behavior and tying it to genetics. Is that how we're classifying genetic study? So the question is it greater than 2 million people or less than 2 million people? All right, so you guys have about 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer that question. Is there anything you want to add on top of this? Without giving away the answer?
I will say I think it was done on height.
The height study? That's
Genetics
awesome.
of height. Woo! Forgot about that.
All right, largest human genetic study to date. Less than 2 million people or greater than 2 million people? So this is presumably doing an entire sequence plus correlating with some trait.
Yeah, that's a genome-wide association study. Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, looking at the genome and looking to see what's correlated or associated with height.
So I don't want to bias this question, but I'm curious how much it costs to do a genetic sequence at this point.
So it really depends on the depth of coverage of the genetic sequence. But like your regular old like common variant. Oh, I needed that, didn't I? Oh, I forgot. I did not need
The
that.
wall.
Is under $100. That was the big race, right? To get kind of common variants. What you can use to do that polygenic score I told you about. It's maybe up to like 3 million genetic variants right now. You can do that for under $100. That's the test that if you do like 23andMe that they're doing. That's why they can do 23andMe for $100. The test is under 100. But to do what's called like whole genome sequencing, so not just looking at kind of common variants, but looking kind of within, areas of the genome that don't have genes in them and other kind of specific, very specific kind of deletions or kind of other like changes or differences in the genome. I'm starting a project right now where we're looking at, it's like $600 to $700 per person to do it.
I mean, that's not bad. It was $5,000 like 10 years ago, right? That's crazy how fast.
Yeah, getting it to under $1,000 per person was a big race, technology race, and then it very quickly went under $100 per person for that kind of base.
That's amazing.
Genetic work.
All right, Sarah, what's the answer? Largest human genetic study to date?
It is over 2 million.
Greater than 2 million. That is what everyone guessed. Everyone said
terrible at these questions.
No one got any return. That's fine. This is your first. Next time you're on, you can game theory them. You can really mess with them and manipulate the outcome. So everyone.
It's crazy. You're all like, because they were figuring me out, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of participants. I think the first one that got really big was height. But the most recent one that's about to come out, it's anticipated, there was conference presentations on it, but the paper is anticipated is on a trait, or in my field we call it a phenotype because we like to be complicated and use different words for something that we already have a normal English word for. So a phenotype of interest to psychologists is educational attainment. So this is another factoid. I'm supposed to make people pay for these, but I'll give this one away for free because it's based on the question you all got correct anyway.
So it turns out I have infinite internet points, so I can request a factoid. Look at that. Ask a Scientist Gaming redeemed request a factoid,
Thank
Sarah.
you. Thank
if you wouldn't mind.
Educational attainment, that's literally like, what's the highest level of education did you get? You may think, well, that doesn't sound that interesting, but it is kind of more closer to like a psychological trait we might be interested in, right? It's linked to income and even like life satisfaction and longevity and
Life
those
expectancy. Yeah, that's crazy.
those sort of things. So it is important. It's not, I wouldn't have made my career on educational attainment. I'll say that. But the reason why that one is the largest to date, I don't know why I'm working on getting that, but for a human molecular genetics study is, remember, we needed these big consortiums and we needed all kinds of scientists around the world, because no one scientist can collect a sample of multiple million people. The sample, I think it's going to be 3.5 million people when it comes out.
Wow.
The most recent one was, I think, a 1.5 million, and there's going to be like a 3.5 million one that's about to come out. But across the world, across all of kind of human genetics work, no matter like what trait or phenotype people are interested in studying, what's like a question that they ask in an intro questionnaire? When you're working with a human, you ask basic demographic questions, right? And you ask, what's your name? What's your birthday? And then it's just kind of natural that people tend to ask, like, what's your education level? And so no matter cancer geneticists, you name it, any geneticists around the world had happened to ask a question about educational attainment. And so they realized, for proof of concept, we needed to look at this complex human behavior, right, that we were interested in, and what's the way that we can get to be at power at a large enough sample size in molecular genetics to show proof of concept that we could start to get usable variants from the human genome that's interesting to predict things. And so they figured out, everybody asked that question, and so they collected across every data set they could ever get, and they keep creating these bigger and bigger samples. So height exists because that's also a question that lots of medical professionals have, but kind of a more specific to things that, about humans that we might be interested in beyond height, which, sure, height, but...
And so that's a global data set then. That's not localized to any particular ethno-geographic.
Well, let's
let's be realistic about it.
It's not really global.
So
it actually
US,
includes
Europe,
two
Canada.
really big sample. Well, and also this is
Iceland.
Yeah, I think something like all of Iceland is or something like that. No, so to do this type of molecular genetics work, they actually purposely have to exclude anybody who has not European ancestry.
Oh, wow.
So, like, everything we know about human genetics and complex human behaviors, like what I'm interested in, we know only in individuals with European ancestry.
That is interesting.
And so the little bit that we know outside of that is that we're really bad at predicting outcomes for individuals who don't have European ancestry. And so, it's a major issue in the field.
I mean, there's no way China is not doing this study right now. Like major sequencing that...
I would think so too. I don't know what the data is on that. The US is NIH. If you all are interested in this and participating in research, I really recommend this project. I think it's still open to enrollment. It's called the All of Us. So it's run by NIH, and they are looking to create a data set of 1 million people. 1 million people who perfectly represent the US demographically. And they will all be genotyped, and there's this really cool interface. They're kind of trying to make it like gamified, like 23andMe and things, where you like answer questions, and they link to your health records. They can link even to your like activity watch and stuff, and collect data for researchers to use. And they're doing sequencing on that data set so that they can add more kind of ancestry variability into what we know genetically. So check out All of Us if you want. It's a pretty cool project that's funded by the federal government through the NIH, and they're doing some neat stuff. They just released their first data set. It's all kind of on this idea of open science and open data. They released their first data set of 100,000 participants who've been genotyped just this week.
Wow. So I put a link in chat. Anyone that's interested, click that, follow it, sign up. Share your information. On a related note, have you done or would you do the 23andMe or one of the private sequencing? Am I wrong to be skeptical about
Yes,
that?
I have not done it. I don't really want to give away genetic information to a private company. I've almost done it recently because it's getting to the point where it feels kind of like I can't be in this field without having a little bit of knowledge of what it's like. I did give my DNA to all of us, so I'm in that first 100,000 data set because I trust research. I trust this idea of using it for research. But 23andMe is like selling that genomic information to your people.
Yeah, your people, my people.
It's probably
no, that's fair. That's fair.
Probably not actually your
I'm
people,
not worried
but
about
who do
my
like
people.
who do
I'm worried about the
drugs.
the CEO of my people.
Yeah.
Those are the guys. Yeah.
And so so I have not done that. So last I heard, a lot of behavioral geneticists have not done it as well because of those concerns. But to be honest, 23andMe is one of the reasons why that sample size of educational attainment got so big and why lots of other sample sizes have gotten big enough.
Yeah.
They do share their data with researchers, and because it's been so popular, you as a consumer of 23andMe can choose to not have your data be participating in research, but if you do, they do use it for good. They do give it to scientists, and it really has substantially changed the field access to that data. So that has been one of the major reasons why the sample sizes are so big. 23andMe and a sample called UK Biobank, which is hundreds of thousands of like 55-year-olds when they were recruited in the UK. And that's what has been primarily driving the large sample sizes of human genetics work these days.
I mean, I guess my paranoia with it is, in the U.S. we have this idea of like a pre-existing condition, and the line on that is not well defined.
My paranoia is around that same place for me as well.
It's like pre-existing. If they have a sequence and they know, can they deny you?
And there's no, I know, best as I know, is there's still no laws about that right now.
No one is addressing any of this stuff.
So how that can be used against you in the future, we're not there yet, but the technology will probably get there.
Yeah, and I mean, my sequence will be on record forever, and who they sell it to, and yeah, I'm a bit paranoid. Cuddle Puppy follows up: if both my parents have done 23andMe, how screwed am I? Not zero. So
well, there's those cases, right, where they're using it to catch criminals. I don't think it was 23andMe though. And I mean, it was definitely a bad criminal, that looked good on the surface, but it is a little bit scary that it was not the original intention. And it was not, it was the California Strangler.
Oh, really? That was through a genetic testing?
Yeah,
it
may have been 23andMe. I don't know what company it was, but they got it through genetic, and it was not, the California Strangler was not part of the study, but his cousins had given away their DNA to one of these companies, and that's how they identified him. So yes, if you're any of your family members, and this is really an interesting ethical thing that I talk about with my students, you as an individual may choose that, but your family has not chosen that. By automatically your family knows, the company knows about your family by your consenting into doing it, that your family has not consented.
And if you're a twin, you are absolutely screwed.
Well, yeah. So like, I don't even have to spend the $600 for both identical twins. I just need to do one.
Half price twin study.
You literally know everything.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's just a really kind of hairy, I'm sure kind of medical ethicists and things are, wrestling about it and talking about it. Hope, people must be talking about it, but it's not being handled through the legal system.
I mean, and that sucks because politicians are not going to take this discussion seriously. It's just going to be posturing, at least American politics. I'm so frustrated with, I won't rant too much, but to have a serious discussion about this and its implications needs to happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah, before, because there's going to be some cases before, and it will probably go to the Supreme Court or something like that. Who knows? It will finally force maybe something. I don't know. Look at the anti-lynching bill that got signed yesterday.
Yeah, no shit.
That's how long things take here.
Heads up, it's now a federal crime to lynch someone.
Jeez.
It only took, centuries for that to happen. Was Ted Cruz the California Strangler? No, Ted Cruz was the Zodiac Killer. At least I heard. Anyway. And we're flying through time, and we have 4
Oh my
predictions
goodness,
left.
yeah.
We should do another one.
Okay.
Which one do you want?
Hopefully
to do?
one of them is useful.
Well, I mean, it wasn't bad on the first one. This one, though, 100%.
This one might be.
He can be both. Yes. Sorry, which one?
Well, we've talked a little bit about, well, this one they should all get now because I've already said it a couple times.
Okay, we'll give her that one.
We've talked a little bit about, but maybe that one
Yeah, we can do that.
to contrast the.
We'll see. It's imaginary internet points. I don't feel bad if they go bad or biased one way or another. All right, standard internet unit spending time. We're going to throw up another prediction right now. Same idea, which one has a higher genetic correlation. So we'll pop this up. You guys have 2 minutes. Question is, which one has a lower genetic component? The neighborhood you live in or the religion you are? Which one of those has a lower correlation with genetics? 3.5 million person study. And so that's not detailed genetic sequencing. That's the like.
Yeah, I believe it's
bulk
the common variants.
That's really cool. I mean, like, it's one of those things, like, do I want my insurance company to know I might have a prevalence for earwax or something? Like, can they deny service? Can they deny coverage on any of these pieces of information? I think they can now, right? There's no.
Yeah, I was just talking with somebody who was doing disability insurance, and they, said that they have occasional anxiety. And then a waiver came in, that included PTSD, which has almost nothing to do with anxiety and your risk towards PTSD. That's, based on a situation, an event. And that's now not included as part of their disability insurance,
Jeez. I mean, Gattaca was not the worst possible outcome, is what we're learning from this, which is crazy. All right, you guys have about 35 seconds left. What has the lower genetic component? The neighborhood you live in or religion you are? Throw your predictions in there now. This one is also biased one particular way. We'll see if they got it right. Does the communion blood of Christ show up in my genetic test? This might affect the poll.
No.
I had one of my students, one of my undergrads, who was graduating like 2 years ago. There was a joke in one of our group gatherings about the blood of Christ and communion wine, and theoretically, according to Catholic dogma, if you say those Latin words, it becomes the blood of Christ. It's not a representation, it becomes.
Yeah.
And so I basically asked my student to calculate Jesus's blood alcohol level from that, and it ends up being ridiculously high. It's like 10 times the legal limit. But fun factoid, I'll figure he literally, I made it a joke, do a back of the envelope calculation. 2 days later, he brought me an envelope with text on it, actually doing the math.
Wow.
Yeah. No, he's doing really well. He's a really good undergrad. He should be getting his PhD sometime soon, which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
But yes, that will not show up in your genetic test.
No.
According to the ethanol and various other things. All right, Sarah, what is the answer? Lower genetic component, neighborhood you live in or religion you are?
The religion you are. Oh my. I thought for sure that was going to get him. Because everybody thinks where you live doesn't have any genetic component, but it has a pretty big genetic component. Your choice of where you choose is genetically inclined. Not the choice, but also then the circumstances of where you live.
Yeah. I mean, it's not off the wall. Like, what percentage? It's something like 60% of the population will live their entire life within 50 miles of home. I mean, there has to be an inherent genetic biasing behind that alone, right? Whoa, get it.
Whoa, it's out there. Yeah, so what religion you are is one of the examples of one of the lowest genetic influences, that it is not very genetically driven. How religious you are is definitely a genetic trait.
That's insane. So like genetics, you could make a prediction on whether someone will join your cult or not. Like the likelihood of that.
Well, there's lots of
happening.
personality factors tied up into that.
Yeah.
But no, so somebody being religious is very genetically driven, but what religion you are, kind of similar to what political affiliation you are, being interested in politics and being politically minded is genetically driven, but what political party you are is based almost entirely on what family you grew up in, what your family is. Same with religion. The religion that you choose, your desire to be part of a religion and to have those inclinations are definitely a genetic trait, but it could be applied to any religion, and you pick the religion usually based on your family, what your parents were.
Pick is a generous word there.
Yes.
It is chosen for you.
Yeah, it's for children, yeah. For adults, maybe a different answer.
That's a good point. So you were not expecting the one-sided answer on these.
I was not. I thought I was going to get him because I tell you, I have to say it is controversial, really controversial to talk about where you live having a genetic component. It's similar to like, your socioeconomic status or how much money you make, or how much resources your family has. Having a genetic component is extremely controversial.
I mean, I could see that being inherently controversial because you can predict SAT scores based on zip code.
Yes.
But this also means genetics has a tie with zip codes. So your SAT has some, it's A to B to C to...
Yes, definitely.
You wade muddy waters.
Your cognitive skills definitely have genetic.
Yeah.
And the extent to which SAT is cognitive skill.
Tisoko, thank you for the Prime subscription. I really appreciate it. You guys don't have to give us money. It pays for beer and alcohol and our habit. And our newest edition, I'll have to show you guys a photo of the signature board. But thank you for the subscription, particularly with Prime, because you're spending Jeff Bezos' money. It's not even yours. So if you guys have a Prime subscription, just subscribe to Ask a Scientist Gaming. He writes us a check directly. He says,
no way!
No, he doesn't. But he owns Amazon. Amazon owns Twitch. And so Twitch has a affiliation with Amazon. If you have Amazon Prime, you can give basically a $5 subscription every month to a streamer of your choice.
Oh.
And so D-Stoko chose us. Cheers, DeSoko. Thank you for joining us. Also, first time chat. Again, thank you for joining us. Anyone that is just joining us, our guest today is Dr. Sarah Hart. She's a developmental psychologist that does a lot of twin studies. Particularly, she wants to understand cognitive development and how people learn math and the difference between nature and nurture. So if you have questions, throw them in chat. We are happy to answer them, or at least contemplate them, discuss them in what's hopefully intellectually stimulating ways. But we'll see. We're a couple glasses in at this point.
Yeah. And I'm probably an intrinsically less interesting area to talk about in the crowd, but I have a newer area of expertise as well. Did you find yourself kind of after tenure doing new things?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I do photomechanical polymers, which are polymers that you shine light on them and they bend depending on polarization. Not related to anything I've done in the past, but
from an outsider, it sounds like it's pretty related.
Cool, doesn't it?
It sounds cool. It sounds related though.
I mean, it's light driven, but I traditionally do light into solar cell, like light into electricity.
Yeah.
So converting light into mechanical work is, for my lens, is a dramatically different thing. But yeah, completely understand. Anyway, your post tenure.
Yeah, I got somebody was asking kind of questions related to replication, and that to me I always think about kind of open science stuff. I have a big NIH grant to build a data repository, so I'm into data sharing. And ironically, I spent my whole career doing twin studies and those sorts of things, and I almost never, other than you, get asked to give talks about that. And I now am becoming quite known for data sharing stuff.
That's awesome.
Which is kind of funny because it's not what I trained to do.
Whatever.
Yeah, but so I support scientists in my field in developmental science and in education to do good data management practices, to think about their data management practices. We don't train it in my field. So, thinking about training it, supporting the field, and then towards sharing data openly after you've collected it. When you use federal funds to collect data, it then does belong to the public. So kind of returning it back into the public.
And speaking of the changing direction, so I do the test analysis stuff on the side for fun.
Yeah.
I actually gave my first talk at a regional meeting. I got invited to a chemical education symposium to actually present it.
So you're probably the same thing. You're going to find yourself kind of this, like, what was like a niche thing that you were interested in. But because it is so niche, you know, you kind of become known for it.
Yeah, well, it was really interesting because there are chemical education researchers, but like, it's not necessarily, I don't know if respected's the right word, but you have someone like me that I'm hired to do research, right? Scientific research, and my teaching is not a priority by any means. And so anyone that's doing educational research in a department like mine just won't get the respect they probably deserve, because it's not, you know, chemical science, it's education research. And like what was really interesting is everyone else at the symposium for the most part was an education researcher, and they were most excited not necessarily about my science, but the fact that I was a person doing it. Because what sucks is I'm going to pull more weight in my department than someone who's an educational expert.
That's true.
And it sucks that that's true, but so it was really interesting from a, like, I don't know, meta-analysis standpoint, just life experience, and yeah, very weird. But it was fun. I really liked it because I got to see presentations by people that actually, you know, want to know how to teach kids stuff rather than rely on intuition and what people are. That's what's crazy. Sorry, Sarah, I rant about this every time we talk, but like my colleagues are 100% sure the way they teach is the best way to teach. Despite,
and you're like, have you ever read any?
Exactly.
There is pedagogical research.
And that's the thing. Like, we'll spend hours debating where an electron goes after it's hit with a photon, right? And that will be a controversial discussion. But when people are discussing what literally affects 1,000 kids per semester, it's just like, no, I'm pretty sure this is right. And it's amazing. It's breathtaking. It's frustrating. Yeah. Anyway, such is the life we lead. That's why we're so interesting. We're not accountants. We're teachers and we're scientists and intriguing people that
obviously
perception,
funny,
funny,
good looking.
Exactly. We check all the boxes. But anyway, all right. You mean having 20 tabs open on my laptop isn't good data management?
It is not.
Sorry, Reese's Pieces. Shot down by a data management expert. She's going to use you as a case study next time she presents. 20 tabs open. I saw on Twitter once, it was like before an NSF deadline, and they're like, did you know in Firefox the limit of tabs was 62? I'm like, I did not.
Also, who's using Firefox?
I don't remember. At least it's not Explorer. OpenSet, welcome back. I'm a math teacher myself.
Oh.
I had countless conversations with people who are 100% resistant to any way we change the way we teach. Yes. This is your expertise, literally.
Yeah, well, I mean, I teach undergrads, you know.
Yeah.
I have not been in the trenches kind of in K-12 classrooms, you know, doing real teaching. I say that after you just talked about the real teaching that you're working on as a chemistry teacher. Yeah, and then there's also like educational fads, which is a thing, and especially in K-12.
Speaking of which, so I think we've hashed this out a little bit last time, but traditional classroom versus flipped classroom versus active learning. Can you define those for me and the audience? Because we've had a lot of fights about this in my department.
Okay, well, I don't know if I know the formal definition.
No, not formal. Just like the better definition than I would give is what
so traditional learning is you should. Oh, I almost lied again, which would have been embarrassing because of all of the cheats you gave me.
Yeah.
When you show up to a classroom and you expect that the instructor is going to pretty much like, you're going to open up your brain and they're going to place information into your brain, and that is it. You're just going to sit there and passively receive the information, and that's what your experience as a student is.
So I've heard that referred to as teacher-centered.
Okay. Yeah. And then with flipped classrooms, normally that kind of like opening up the brain and putting information into it occurs before you come into the classroom, with the idea being that that's just going to be like videotaped, and that's pretty it is by definition passive. And that can be done anywhere. It doesn't have to be done with a student in the classroom, but instead, once you get the student in the classroom, do the active, do the activities, do the problem solving, or whatever kind of the key hard part to the content is, with the instructor there and having students, there's all kinds of different ways to do it, but having them work on problem sets or whatever it is, the more difficult portion of the class in the classroom with the instructor there to provide guidance. So that's not happening in homework at home when they have no guidance. But instead, the stuff that they don't need guidance on, that just listening and receiving information can occur at home. That's a flipped classroom. And then active learning can, I think, occur within a flipped classroom or a traditional classroom. And that's more just like that kind of hands-on part, right? That, getting your hands dirty on, you probably, your chemistry labs must be considered active learning, right? Like doing the chemistry things, beakers things, liquids things.
It depends. Given that, but before answering that, so is there a consensus on best strategies? I mean, traditional lecture is presumably not the answer anyway.
No, but I would say that the evidence about a flipped classroom is not the best. So think about what you're requiring of students to do in a flipped classroom. To receive the information, they have to find time to watch your lectures or to learn the information. And what do we know about students and homework? Reading the text.
Yeah.
Right? Who's doing that? The conscientious students, the students that maybe don't struggle with ADHD. Or the like, we know who struggles with that, and those same students struggle in a flipped classroom. The students who can engage in that material and do engage in that material outside of the classroom do very well in a flipped classroom. It is much better for them.
I see.
It's just not better for everybody, and it can be pretty bad for some students. It's the best that I know. I only like look into that literature occasionally and then dip back out of that literature.
I mean, so flipped classroom is probably a fad then.
I think it's a fad. I think it's a teaching fad.
I mean, active learning, there, as far as I know, there is demonstrable evidence.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be a fad. I mean, I think that's why FSU is investing in this big active learning, building where all the classrooms are set up for active learning, for team learning or, whatever it is. By team learning, group work and stuff, we even changed the classroom in my building to have those wheelie, this is where I teach, wheelie chairs. So it's not traditional, students can go anywhere in the classroom. The classroom is lined with whiteboards so that you can, get them, move them around, have them do activities, group work, whatever, be more active as students. That's how I think of active learning. But
so does the university consult you guys, your department, your expertise?
If I don't know if they consulted anybody, they probably wouldn't come to psychology. Cognitive psych talks a little bit about memorization strategies, study strategies, but really kind of pedagogical stuff and higher education would be higher education.
I see.
How do you teach college students best? That would be in the College of Education, not psychology.
I need a College of Education guest on.
Yeah,
I need to find somebody. I've talked about many times branching out. I want to
refer some to you.
Anyone you want to I would love to bring on an art historian, a music theory person. I'm happy to expand outside of science. I just don't know people.
Yeah.
A lot of it's word of mouth and cold emails. Hey, I'm from chemistry. Do you want to drink, play video games, and talk science? They're right to be skeptical.
Come to my house.
Yeah, exactly. Just come on over. We'll sit in front of lights and drink. It's gonna be fine.
Not totally normal.
Yeah, no, that's okay. All right. I missed one from way back. Maximinimus wants to know, if a smart high school student is interested in your kind of research, what would be the most important classes to take?
I always say becoming a better writer and taking statistics classes. You can take psych, right? There's AP psychology, but that material you can learn in undergrad, first year psychology. But being a good writer and being good with statistics and liking statistics and numbers, those are usually skills that may need a little bit more than one class. And so getting that experience is probably useful.
So when you're looking for, so in terms of chemistry, we basically hire grad students into the department. So we basically intake a classroom or class of 35 students, and then when they're here, they decide on a group. You guys do it very differently.
Yeah,
right?
we have
You
a
hire
mentor model.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we hire somebody applies to work in my lab, and now they do get accepted to our area. So I'm in developmental psychology, right? A graduate student does get accepted to the area. So if it doesn't work out with an advisor, technically the area has accepted that student.
I see. They can
so that
switch.
that student can switch, but our model is so set up that it's specific to a mentorship model that it gets a little awkward when that happens, or hard.
I believe it.
So yeah, you apply to work with somebody because you're interested in their research area.
And so when you're looking at applications and you say, I want this student, I mean, going back to this question here from Maximinimus, what stands out? You want to see somebody with a statistics double major? Like what does your ideal student look like?
I don't have an ideal student. I study individual differences, right? I think everybody's a little bit different from each other.
That's fair.
So I don't have an ideal. I don't like boxes. I don't put people in boxes.
We'll say probabilistically, what is the 90% Sarah will like it category of an applicant?
Well, generally a PhD is a lot of hard work, right? And it takes resilience, and also what I like to remind my undergrads that although you're at university and you're surrounded by people with PhDs, only like 1% of the population gets a PhD. We are weird. I know that we're cool and stuff like that. We've already deserved.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've already
Good
figured that out. And obviously funny, but we're weird, right?
Yeah,
it is not something that everybody wants to do and that everybody should necessarily do. And so having research experience, understanding what the day-to-day life of science is like, because I don't know about you, but it's not like Nobel Prize winning work every day.
No, it's
you
not.
probably have a lot of cleaning of glassware happening in your lab.
It's not CSI.
Yes, exactly. That's the equivalent. And in my lab, it's not the equivalent of interviewing sociopaths and psychopaths every day.
Except for your colleague, who's way more interesting than you.
That's what's weird. Yeah. And then I'm like, you come and you sit in a seat and you do data entry all day.
Yep. Yeah, you gotta like the grind.
You have to find the beauty in data entry to be in my lab. I'm a developmental psychologist, and I have literally never had a child in my lab. You don't see children in my lab. If you interview with me and you say, I'm really interested, I love working with kids, I want to be around kids, that's actually a bad fit. And it tells me that you don't understand what the day-to-day life is. You want to do something different. So that's why kind of having research experience is going to be helpful. But then I also recognize, the privilege of saying that, and not everybody has that privilege of, either by what type of undergrad they went to, or being first generation. Like I was first generation, like not knowing, that you're supposed to do those types of things, or being at a big state university and not even knowing how to interact with that. Find research, so it is helpful. It would be unusual for me to take on a graduate student that has had no research experience at all. So that's important. Yeah, it is very helpful. Our program is heavily statistics oriented. So having taken a stats minor, when students ask me what they should do, I do tell them that you should, not take that content minor. Lots of students in my psychology, and they take like child and family studies as a minor. It makes sense. They're interested in kids and families and developmental psychology, but like that content you can learn from reading or from our classes in the major. And instead, taking a stats minor is helpful if you want to do a PhD. But I don't require that for my students applying for my lab.
Yeah, just a bonus.
Yeah.
And we see that in chemistry. We like math minors and things like that.
Yeah. It shows that you're interested in it. You can't be scared of math.
Yep.
You have to be interested in learning it to be in our developmental psych area. You take 7 stats classes in my developmental psych area as a PhD student. So we are stats oriented.
Faithful Fairy, a few years back, my grad school chem department started overhauling our curriculum to an active learning style. Being a TA to pay for my stipend at the time, I honestly didn't feel students were taught much different compared to the kids in the old curriculum. I mean, that seems like an implementation issue. It should be dramatically different if you're doing a true active learning style, right? It's something we haven't implemented, but what we're talking about doing. But what sucks is there isn't like a catch-all, and I've looked for this in chemistry, like here's an active learning classroom package. You know, like here's what you should implement, here's day 1, here's day 2, here's the book. It just doesn't exist right now. All right, we just crossed 10 o'clock. Anyone just joining us? Ask a Scientist Gaming, mediocre gameplay, expert level science. My guest today is Dr. Sarah Hart, who's a developmental psychologist. She is happy to talk about nature versus nurture, about genetics, about how it impacts our behavior. The answer is non-zero for everything, including watching TV. She talks about twin studies and understanding, the variables that influence who we are and why we do what we do. So if you have questions, throw them in chat and we are happy to answer them.
I was protesting against the mediocre gameplay.
No, you're right. This is God mode gameplay.
Yeah. This is
super amazing cheat codes.
Nothing mediocre about my play.
Oh, that's fair.
As I'm still on World 6 with all of the cheat codes that you gave me.
That's true.
Eventually you're going to have to cut me off, aren't you? Because we're going to have to play your NARC game.
We have to get to NARC.
Yeah.
We'll do that about 10:30. How good do you think you're going to be at NARC? It's also Game Genie codes.
I don't know anything about it.
So I have a scoreboard of how fast my guests beat NARC. We do a speed run on NARC. So no pressure, but...
That is a lot of pressure.
Is it? Judged according to your colleagues?
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfair because some of my colleagues, like Rob
are like
Lazenby in
serious.
chemistry, he plays games. Like, he was super excited to play. I think he wanted to do... What was he going to play? It wasn't Call of Duty, but it was one of the more modern games that he actually plays online. But we had restrictions. I don't know if you care about this, but PlayStation 5 has a restriction where there's a setting in the console that doesn't let you rip video off of it unless you set it a certain way. And it's basically to restrict you from like stealing DVDs and things like that. And we didn't know that at the time. We tried to set it up in 30 minutes. So he ended up playing whatever I had on hand. So it goes. All right, Reese's Pieces wants to know. I heard from someone who studies math learning that the Monroe method of teaching, upper level college math, has shown positive results for retaining course content at the expense of less content being covered in class. Have you encountered this method, even though you focus on younger demographics?
Yeah.
The Monroe method.
More method?
More method. I apologize. More method. You're right.
No, I don't know it.
I mean,
I've never heard of it before.
So the general idea of covering less but covering it better.
Yeah, definitely.
That's well known and accepted.
Well, I actually don't know the evidence behind it. That's just like my experience in classes where you're always like, I cover too much.
Mm-hmm. Famous topologist. Began teaching there in 1911. So this is a old school method. I mean, all right, so here's an opening statement from the Wikipedia page. Moore would begin his graduate course in topology by carefully selecting the members of his class.
Oh,
that is already
to get the good students.
Yeah, that has already screwed any analysis or any meaningful anything out of it. I mean, yeah.
That's why charter schools look good, right?
Yeah.
Charter schools masquerade as public schools. We fund them like public schools, but they're allowed to select what students they have in them. And that means that if you have any sort of disability or the like, they can boot you out.
Yeah. Artificially inflate performance.
And public schools are legally not allowed to do that.
Man, did you see the $11 million deficit for Leon schools? Because of the charter and the school choice program and
because of the mask war that they got into.
Yep.
I did not see that.
Yeah. No, that was recent, and it was in the Tallahassee Democrat, I think.
Okay.
It was so it's the school choice law or whatever that is, basically allowing students to go to charter schools on public dollar, and it basically siphons out of the public school program.
Yes, it's a attempt to dismantle public school. I am I don't know what am I doing wrong on this board? Why do I keep cycling through the same thing?
Oh, so sorry. I haven't been paying attention at all. So go back to the main. So it keeps giving you a leaf because you have to fly up there.
But I can't get the leaf.
You can jump.
Oh, I keep forgetting I can jump.
So jump up one of these. No, oh, you might have to get super speed so you can actually see. So you'll have to run.
Oh.
Like you found where it is, but you can't see anything. So fall down. If you get P speed, it'll track you. You can actually see it. Oh my god! Oh, we broke it.
This might be the time to end Super Mario Brothers 3.
And it's 45 minutes. Try jumping. Jump up and see if you can jump down. Oh, there you go. Something happened. Okay, you're hitting something. So there's a pipe somewhere up there.
See if you can feel it. Oh!
Oh, there we go. So let me...
So if you speed run, oh, that's interesting. Oh, because then it thinks you're flying.
Yeah. So it lets you
okay.
see. So one of those has an exit where you have to go.
Okay. Nope.
Forgot about this level.
Oh.
Speed. So it's not that one. I think it might be that.
It must be this one, yeah. I must have to clear out all this stuff. I'm about to time out.
Oh, you got this.
Oh. How do I...
Oh, shit.
Do I need...
You might not be able to beat
Oh, I need the tail!
All right. We'll keep going. I'll turn off the hammer. You got to go get a tail and then fly up there and tail whip that.
Oh.
Actually,
I got 20 seconds.
You have yeah, you're screwed. All right. Anyone that has questions for Dr. Sarah Hart, throw them in there now because she's going to be starting this level over again. So any questions you have, throw them in. So I got to follow up. So last time we talked about no moral qualms and unlimited budget. And you wanted to do mass scale twin studies.
Yeah.
So this could be through in vitro fertilization.
I forgot I can't lose him. Yeah.
But the question I'd have is what about like intentional genetic mutations? Like you could make octuplets and modify one selectively versus the others. Mm-hmm. I mean, is that...
Like a genetic experiment?
Yeah.
We don't know enough about genetics, though, the human traits that I'm interested in.
If you did 1 million of those studies, like, is that the holy grail of data sets? Does that answer your questions?
No, you see, in the end, I know we keep talking about genes here, but in the end, I'm a developmental psychologist, right? I'm interested in environments around kids.
Yeah.
I use behavioral genetics to control for genetics because I know genetics matters, and I'm interested in environment. So to me, the holy grail is instead taking identical twins, purposely separating them at birth, and putting them into environments that I choose. Because remember that question we had way back at the start. Does nature nurture, which one matters more? But I took it to what matters the most in the environment, right? I want to know, do parents actually matter a lot?
Yeah.
So manipulate what type of parenting identical twins receive.
So you do the inverse. You'd intentionally generate, several identical embryos.
Yes, and put them in the environment that I want, and it's an experiment, right? Then I can experimentally say this environment matters.
That's interesting. Is there any? So presumably a surrogate parent. That's another variable, right? You could technically clone a child and have hundreds of women pregnant with the same embryo.
Yeah, interuterine stuff is not a huge deal though in my world. No. I mean, we're talking about like human psychology. For medical things, it's bigger, but it's not a huge. Well, we don't know a lot, but it's likely not a big deal. I keep going up here when I don't really need to go up here. I guess I'll hit that. So they could be born to whoever, but putting them into a parent of my choosing, that was a waste of my time, is what I would do. And then maybe have them exposed to a school of my choosing and then to a friend group of my choosing.
Control all the variables.
Yeah.
I like it. All right, I can get you... Ooh, Tanuki Mario. Who can fly. So I'm just going to add one here. So you will have the ability to fly. Should work on the next one. If this code works.
Okay, I'll go back to this level I need to fly on.
Oh, no. I have no idea why that code didn't work. Here, I'll try another one.
Oh, you cannot wipe out that guy by sliding into him.
Up here.
Yeah, I need that.
Right.
Starting to get tired.
Yeah, no, it's getting late.
I'm not playing as well.
No worries.
I was on a Zoom call, everybody, from
that is
9:15 this morning till 6:15.
That is absolutely insane.
We got a 20-minute break, and I had to teach in between, so like at least gave me a break.
So they let you out of the study group to teach?
Yeah, before I even agreed, because I knew I had to teach. It was all day Wednesday, all day Thursday,
Yeah.
and I told them that I teach at 3:05 to 4:20 on Monday, Wednesdays. So
Lame Humvee is fed up with your gameplay. You have to carry a turtle shell up there to block it. You could do that. Here.
like, I cannot watch you continue to struggle
one
with
is it?
this.
6?
No, I was in 5.
5. Oh,
Yeah.
shit. I don't know how to exit this. Wait, you want to do this one as Mario?
No, I'm gonna pour
Hammer?
myself another glass of wine. Go for it.
There we go. So you didn't try this one as Sledgehammer, Mario?
No, I didn't.
Oh, but that's easy. Got. All right, there you go. This will be beat. Lame, welcome back. Welcome to the stream. First time chat. Thank you for stopping by. Ask Scientist Gaming. Mediocre gameplay. Could we say mediocre this time? Mediocre gameplay, expert level science. If you have questions for developmental psychologist Sarah Hart, throw those in chat right now. We have about 40 minutes left in the stream. We should probably do another one of the predictions. So which one do you want?
I already gave the answer to so many of these.
That's fine. We'll throw them up there.
Okay.
I don't think you gave this one away.
Well, if they were listening, let's see if I gave it away.
Let's do it. I'm excited. It's a mixed bag because people can defer from answering. Wish I had to force viewers to answer because I'd be curious general population versus those that know the answer. Mm-hmm. Have you ever given an exam where it was like you can choose whether to answer or not, or scaling accordingly?
No, I haven't.
I'm curious. This is a testing methodology where you could like bet points based on your certainty and things like that. It's again a game theory method of assessment. I don't know how useful it is, but I'm curious. I'm intrigued. All right, so we're throwing a prediction up there right now. If you have standard internet units, now's the time to spend them. If you're not following, click the follow button. Get your 300 standard internet units that are useless for everything, except they're fun to bet and win. So the question here is, what causes dyslexia? Is it a single gene or multiple genes? As in, is it a single point mutation, or is it a cooperative behavior of many different genes, many different portions of the DNA that make dyslexia a thing?
Yeah, is there a dyslexia gene?
Is there a dyslexia gene, which is the easy way to say it? Can we target dyslexia? That is a $1,000,000,000 question, right? Well, not necessarily dyslexia, but any condition, right? Can you target it? Is it a single gene? Is it multiple genes? Throw your predictions in there now. You can bet small amounts, you can bet large amounts. Depends on how confident you are in your answer. So dyslexia, is it single gene or is it a multiple gene condition? Guess this this brings us back to the gene therapy question. Can we cure things? Can we solve things? Is dyslexia one of those things?
Well, I mean, we can treat it. So you kind of say you can cure it by good classroom instruction and intervention.
And font choice. I found that very interesting. Did you know that?
That is incorrect.
Really? It doesn't matter?
Nope.
Wow, I thought there were actually worthwhile fonts that helped with dyslexia.
No.
That's just not true. Huh.
Dyslexia is a language-based disorder.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with font.
Yeah, I've heard that before. It was astonishing. It's not visual interpretation. It's the language portion of brain.
There was a paper that came out, you're right, earlier this year where they tried to fuss around with the spacing a little bit.
Yeah.
No,
that doesn't matter.
It's not curing dyslexia, no.
Lane, thank you for the follow. Spend your points on this question right now. You have 2 seconds. Single gene, multiple gene dyslexia. Sorry to interrupt. We ran out of time. All right, Sarah. So what is the answer? Is it a single gene or is it multiple genes?
It is multiple genes. Just like I keep saying, human psychology, human traits are polygenic. Multiple genes, I told you. They've heard me say it over and over again.
5-1. That would have been a 238-1 pull-ups. Dyslexia let us down on that one. but single... So there are a lot of conditions that are single point mutations, but they're not...
They're rare genetic conditions. Yeah.
And there's something like it's like 10,000 of them have been identified.
Yeah.
And they're well understood, but they're rare too.
And I don't even know how many are those actually genes, or like there's chromosomal stuff too, which is not bigger than a gene.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, trisomy 21, right? That's probably that's Down syndrome. PKU has a known single gene disorder. They're called Mendelian disorders when they're single gene disorders. They're incredibly, like I said, rare, and they are not the complex. They have complex outcomes, but they're not the human traits that you think of with psychology.
So what would you do differently if you were writing these questions again? Because I try to I send an email trying to advise guests on what types of questions.
Yeah, and I feel like I hit the theme of what you suggested.
I know, and I don't know how to. I guess I got to add a sentence about meta-analysis and.
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like a lot of these people could pass my undergrad behavioral genetics class. Yeah.
Ask a Scientist Gaming degrees available in the gift shop. Just pay us, write a check. Still cheaper than a college degree. It's crazy though. These questions, I try to answer them and predict ahead of time, and I just don't know. I know some of them that will go bad, but these, I usually suggest this one's bad, this one's good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Faithful Fairy, it was worth a try. At a 238-1 payout, it is worth betting on the dark horse. That's for sure. This is what happens when only us science nerds vote. It might actually be the case. You are not a common demographic. Also, I didn't say you guys were on Ask a Scientist Gaming honor code, so you could have looked up some of these answers. I don't know how easy it is to find.
Yeah, probably not.
For the dyslexia one.
I don't know if you could quickly...
Yeah. Unless you knew what
Generally, what I tell my undergrads is if you ever hear anything described as the gene for, know that is incorrect.
Yeah.
That is not how human genetics work for complex behaviors.
Yeah, it's very specific, genetic disorders and heart conditions. And yeah. Ask us art history and see how that goes. Yeah. Now, I got into art history a little bit today with my inorganic group theory class, which is kind of fun. Coordination complexes and metals, and Prussian blue is an iron hexacyanate complex, and that is actually in Starry Night and the waves off Kanagawa. That blue in that is something called Prussian blue. It was one of the earliest coordination complexes for iron, and it was 1705 when they accidentally discovered it. They were trying to make a red dye, and they made this beautiful blue vibrant dye, and that became the default vibrant dye for centuries. And it wasn't actually, the structure wasn't solved until 1907. So, yeah, science influencing art.
Is it true that we're running out of blue?
I have not heard that.
Is it a blue or a color? There is a color we are running out of. The source material for color, is it purple? No, purple. It would be one of these colors. It depends.
If they have natural products that they're relying on, that is entirely possible.
But you don't know what I'm talking about.
No, I have not heard that. If that's a thing, I need to know about it. Running out of a color. Running out of helium, that's a big problem.
Yes, that's a for real problem.
Yep, that's for MRIs, for NMRs, for imaging technology. That is definitely an issue. Running out of blue pigment is a Google search result.
Yeah.
Supply chain crisis. That's interesting.
It's low in it. Yeah. I didn't think I was making that up.
Axo Noble. Yeah, it's in blue paint. Cost of the materials needed to make the paint increased by over 323 million since last year. So this is a supply chain issue. Sherwin-Williams is getting shortages on blue paints. So if you guys need blue paints, buy them now, because apparently there's a shortage that will continue all throughout 2022. That is interesting. And I look at that and I'm like, what is making that blue color?
Yeah, what is the chemical, right?
Can I make it? Can I Jonathan Dennis this and just turn my lab into blue production facility? Commodity scale production of blue dyes. Sell it out. When you mentioned bringing an artist on, I was thinking a lot of overlap between interest in painters, ceramics, and chemists. Yeah. The other one with a lot of overlap is chemists and chefs or cooks or people that make food. There's a lot of the gastronomy field of people knowing science and trying to apply it to cooking. So, yeah, no, I'm all about it. I'm like genuinely
Kenji
intrigued.
Lopez, his recipes. I do. Yeah.
And there's the Alton Brown. He's a really popular one. Mm-hmm. He actually seems like he knows most of his stuff, at least for the most part. All right, we're at the 10:30 mark.
Okay, put me out of my misery.
Is it time for some narc?
It is time for narc.
It's time to go to a different type of misery.
Okay.
So I'm not going to update that. Where's narc? All right, ladies and gentlemen, Ask a Scientist Gaming. We regularly close the night playing Narc. This is a game that's near and dear to my heart from my childhood, and it became a running gag on stream, and now I make every single one of my guests play this game. Sarah, this is Narc.
I can't believe, I'm like, how did I miss Narc? I've never heard of it before. It was on Nintendo.
So it was originally an arcade console, like an arcade. You'd find it in like Pizza Hut. And it was very violent and graphic and stuff. And then they ported it to the NES and they toned it down. Yeah. So this is us winning the war on drugs with a license plate that says "Just Say No."
I wonder if I could get it in Canada.
What's that?
I wonder if I could get it in Canada.
I don't know. That's a really good question. Yeah. That's a really good question. All right. So press start. So some of the instructions: A shoots, B jumps. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. But I'll set the timer up so right when you go, speed run this.
Am I playing?
Now you are. There you go. All right. So
you said something jumps.
So
okay.
If you hold B, it squats. If you tap B, it jumps.
Okay, got it.
If you hold A, it shoots. If you tap A, it rockets.
Okay.
So they made 2 buttons into 4 with timing issues, which is kind of clever. But the point of this game is to walk right and go through doors. So killing people does nothing for you most of this game. So yeah, that is the entirety of Narc. And so yeah,
am I killing priests? What am I killing? Homeless people?
I'd assume
unhoused people.
They're flashers and drug dealers.
Oh, it does look like flashers.
They're wearing a trench coat and no shirts underneath, so you're gonna want to grab that red card. I'll walk you through some of this. This is just absurd. This is one of those, like, if you're gonna buy your kid, a random game, go to Blockbuster and find the $5 bin, and this was one of those games. And it was something that I played a lot as a kid and never beat, and then I played it on stream because it was nostalgic. And then stream eventually
I was about to ask you, is it possible for me to die? And I did finally just die.
Yep. So you have the blue card if you go to the key door. Oh, there you go. So yeah, this started out as a running gag, and we started speed running it.
How do you go faster? It goes so slow.
I mean, so every time you get shot 6 times, you lose a second. So if you're going to get meticulous on how long it takes you to beat this game, My brother and I have deconstructed this pretty thoroughly because I was challenged to speedrun it, and I did. So that is
Do you
why
have the record for as fast as you can go then?
I do. I have the world record in this game.
The world record?
The world record. I am the world's fastest NARC player. It's on my resume. It's right under education. NARC speedrun record in 9 minutes and 24 seconds.
Family must be very proud.
I know my wife is embarrassed by it. Anytime she says something to me, but I'm like, but I have the world record in NARC. What?
Don't judge. I mean,
Yeah,
I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. Don't worry, I'm a doctor, and I have a record in NARC. So, what do you say to that? Nothing.
I mean, she literally can.
Yeah.
Oh, did I miss something earlier? I had to go in a door
You
earlier.
have to shoot one of those guys, the ones wearing black, shoot them with bullets, and they will drop a card.
Oh, did I just get one? Is that what that was?
But while Sarah is playing NARC and winning the war on drugs, if anyone has any questions for her, developmental psychology, throw them in chat now. We are last minutes of the stream.
Oh my god, they're pieces of somebody.
Oh yeah. Yes. This was much more graphic in the arcade game.
Oh.
A dog, yes. So if you hold down A and B, you can squat and shoot, and then it goes away. Doesn't die, don't worry. It just turns small and runs away. So bullets on the black guys. Yep. This is a terrible game, Sarah, and there you go. And I'm sorry, but
But you're not really sorry.
It's tradition. Oh, but speaking of which, I got to show you guys something real quick. So one of the new additions to Ask a Scientist Gaming is, so right there we got a framed canvas on the wall here, and so in the center is Controlly, our logo for Ask a Scientist Gaming. So from now on, I'm going to have guests sign this, and Sarah is officially the first signature on the Ask a Scientist Gaming placard. So.
I had to practice my signature.
It's stressful, especially the first one. Like if you're the 50th, it doesn't really matter.
You just throw it on there.
Yeah, the first one is stressful.
There was just all kinds of blank paper.
Yeah, no, it's too much. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that because we've had 30 guests so far. You're the 31st, but I guess you're repeating, so 27 total, something like that. Yeah.
Is every level just the same?
You pretty much walk right, and it's going to be different bad guys. But it's the catch on this one is you have
can I
a
get
car.
on the car?
Yep. So if you jump, there you go.
Oh.
So you don't want to go too fast because it's gonna there's gonna be things in the way, including bombs, walls, and all sorts of stuff. That happens to everyone. Don't worry.
That was a big wall.
Yeah, and then there's bombs. There's basically a pattern you have to memorize, and having played this blind, I'm sorry, because this now turns into walk the bridge the level. This is what you do, go to the right.
Oh, and I'm gonna shoot some police?
But going back to the gene versus genes, I mean, so they're starting to do active gene therapy for single point mutations, like those really rare genetic disorders, targeting a specific sequence and using CRISPRs to target that area. I mean, the assumption is with the learning curve, at some point we'll be able to target multiple genes and modify those. I mean, theoretically, we could genetically modify someone in real time to change, like you said, this macroscopic characteristics of their behavior. Is that off the wall, or could we do that theoretically?
I guess we probably could for some behaviors. I just think, there's just so much of genes interacting with environments, right?
Yeah.
That, maybe like some natural inclination of a behavior. I don't mean natural, like genetic natural, but like your first response or something like that. Maybe that's more. I don't actually know the answer to that. If that's more genetically related.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe we could make somebody that's more,
tone down aggression or something.
Yeah,
general,
maybe somebody who's
specific.
more likely to be an extrovert. Maybe you could make them more.
I mean, is it?
And general genetics is not deterministic. That's why I'm struggling with it. So I'm trying to think of examples where, you know.
So if you stay roughly on the bottom, you'll go pretty far.
Woo!
There's going to be bombs up here somewhere.
There.
Found them.
Found them.
I mean, it's just such a intriguing, like, I know it's still science fiction now,
Yeah.
but the idea that you could go into a psychologist and they're like, you just need a prescription for changing this sequence, and all of a sudden, you know, you don't have a fear of snakes or something like that. Like, how far can we take it?
There are some people who think that we will be able to do it, and there are some people who think that we can't. I actually don't know where I am in that continuum.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you think we could do it with some things, like some broader...
Yeah, probably. I can't, well, you know, in a probabilistic sense, right? That's how I think of things, right? So that's why I'm kind of struggling with it, because I'm like, yeah, I could imagine. It's because I'm imagining in a probabilistic sense. I guess maybe that's why I'm stuck on it.
So if you stay on the bottom, it'll take you to the end.
I love how that they just keep everything, they're just like repeating code or something to make the video game.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's Nintendo. You only get so much space.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's science fiction. I'm intrigued. How far can we take it, and who controls that? Who regulates that? The example I give to my students is there's something called Glowfish. There's a company where you can buy goldfish that have green fluorescent protein sequenced into them, and so they essentially program them to glow under a UV lamp different colors. It's only a matter of time before somebody wants a glowing kit, right? It's only a matter of time before they want to choose.
Do we have the biochemistry to be able to be glowing?
I mean, well, so that's what it does. It inserts this, it's called a green fluorescent protein that it's not bioluminescence, it's basically under a UV lamp, your skin expresses a molecule that does that color emission. And so you could essentially program that into somebody's cells. So I don't know if you've seen the images of like glowing rats and glowing pigs and stuff. They've done it with mammals. And so we could do it with people. And so there's no... I mean, there's informal rules, but there's nothing like codified that says this is illegal. So I don't know. Genetically engineered food, that's more and more common. Like apples that don't bruise, things like that. So amazingly, you went in the right door first try.
Oh. But I just did something bad.
No, you just walked back up in the same door. This is one of the most frustrating parts of the game. After you go through the door, don't press up anymore, because it'll take you through the door again, and you'll have to play this loop indefinitely. There you go. Now it's to the left. Silver card. All right, so we're getting to the end of the stream. If anyone has suggestions on people we should raid, please throw those suggestions in right now. Maybe somebody we haven't raided before. Yeah, we're happy to check out other science stream or educational streams or whatever you guys have suggestions for. Throw them in chat. I'm happy to check them out. And yeah, we'll raid somebody else at some point. But yeah, if you have any last minute questions, we're closing the night playing Narc, winning the war on drugs, beating this Rambo-looking person while we go into a... This is presumably marijuana is what those are.
Oh.
That's different flavors of drugs.
That's a little different than the clowns with the knives.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, they removed the hookers from this version, which are in the arcade version.
The sex workers.
The sex workers, I apologize. In the 80s, they were hookers. So you're going to the left on this level.
Oh, okay.
The only one where you go left. I gotta pick another game. So I was thinking about Lawnmower Man. You have to watch that movie. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's terrible. It's absolutely bad. But the idea is that people can learn through virtual reality. So it's Flowers from Algernon, where he learns through virtual reality, but then he becomes super smart and he becomes, you know, the bad guy. So one of those is going to drop a green card.
Not dropping it.
One of the Rambo-looking guys. This is what you thought you'd be doing at 10:42 on a weekend night after 3 glasses of wine, playing some Narc. There you go. Nice. All right. If anyone has questions, throw them in chat. We are happy to answer them. We're happy to talk about whatever subject matter. We'll even make up answers for things we don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at that. You want me to talk really confidently about something I know nothing about?
So that's what's weird is most scientists, like, they'll be very uncomfortable to talk about something that's slightly out of their expertise. But if
really
it's really far, I have the most profound opinions you could ever imagine. Because it's like, it's outside of my error bars. I don't even care anymore. I'll just say anything.
You're right. I'm like, flipped classrooms. I don't know.
Yeah.
Color. Oh, I know.
Exactly. And that's the crazy thing is your discomfort in that range, you still know infinitely more than all the rest of us. But it's like you have to hedge your bets and not.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you are the expert. You could be quoted by someone. And that's how, yeah.
Well, that's terrifying.
I mean,
I don't think anybody wants to quote me for that.
Well, they can time splice this and they can say, look at this YouTube video of this person plays Super Mario Brothers. Clearly they know what they're talking about. They could. They won't, but they could.
We have it seems like some people interested in science listening. If you're interested in developmental science or methods, I have a podcast you could listen to.
Yeah, I'll link to that actually.
Yeah, check out podcasts. I do it with
Within and Between.
Within and Between, yeah. It's on the methods and meta science of developmental science.
So how often do you do this?
Yeah. Yes.
Season 2, 10?
We're in season 3. We have probably like 30 episodes, a little bit more than 30 episodes. And this semester kind of kicked our butt, so we haven't been great this semester. But I do it with a colleague and a friend who's wickedly smart. And yeah, we do some professional development topics. So if anybody is kind of graduate student or interested in graduate school or those types of stuff, we do talk about kind of hidden curriculum professional development topics, but also we talk about statistics and methods in our field, and as well as I have multiple episodes on behavioral genetics and like recent papers that I have and those sorts of things.
Quantitative methodology and statistics. That's fun. Yeah, there's a link in chat there if you want to see Within and Between podcasts. Presumably you can find this on iTunes. And
you can any podcast listening.
You have the key for this.
Oh, do I already have it?
Yep.
I just assumed I didn't.
Searching for information. Podcast, I'm a little bit jealous because you can do it anytime. It's not live, right? So
it isn't live.
Record it.
Yeah, we can record it anytime, and we can release it whenever we want. Yeah, I really enjoy it a lot.
That's awesome. And so you do it together in one setting, or you guys record independently? How do you?
Yeah, we do. So my co-host, she lives in Ohio.
Okay.
We like Zoom each other, and we both record on our own machines, our audio, and then I use Audacity to bring together the audio.
That's nice. So the audio quality is still good.
Yeah,
it's not Zoom
we have
quality.
Like nice mics like this. Yeah, the Zoom quality, the first time we tried that, we're like, this is terrible. Oh. So yeah, we both have our own separate audio file.
I should show you the clips of this when we tried to do the remote, because like I have a portable green screen that I would give people, and we do it over Zoom, and I'd set up it was a lot of work, and the quality was just terrible.
Yeah, because you're right. I was here when, COVID wasn't great, but if we both got tested and felt like it was okay, and then it got real bad there.
Yeah, we were on the dip, like before the second wave.
Yeah.
The last time you were on. And then it just went south, and yeah. But now we're recovering. It seems like returning to normal for the most part. So your classroom,
here in Tallahassee.
Yeah. Are your classrooms? Are you guys masked, or how has that been for you?
Yeah, well, I'm teaching just a 19-person honors student class this semester. So in class, I have probably up to 5. I do a live Zoom.
I see.
So anybody can come to that. So I have usually kind of 3 to 5 on that. And yeah, everybody, other than this past week, but I was okay, that has always come masked. But, I've been noticing kind of just generally, right? We are supposedly in a region that the CDC says,
CDC, yeah.
CDC says that you don't need to do indoor masking. I still choose to. But, I don't, my students are making smart choices, I think. I haven't felt, it was scary going into it at the beginning of the semester, but they really have been great, and everybody has, been worried and kind of doing the best that they can. And the students in my classroom.
Yeah, last semester when I did the 330 person Gen Chem, I was much more paranoid, and rightfully so. Oh, so you got to shoot the wheelchair guy.
It's got a wheelchair.
Yep, something new. So tapping A, you got to shoot him with a rocket.
Oh,
there you go.
Okay.
And now he's gonna inchworm.
Oh.
So you have to do that twice more. But yeah, I was nervous during this semester. I have a 10-person graduate course.
Okay.
It's much more comfortable, but man, it was. So I went out the first day of class. I'm like, here's the university's recommendation. Here's my recommendation.
Yeah.
I have a 2-year-old that's not vaccinated. I'm asking you to do this. And one of my end of the semester reviews was something along the lines of, he kept ranting about masks, and I don't want to get all political, and you're here to teach chemistry, and I'm like, it's still science. There's still evidence behind all this, but it's kind of astounding that these are students that want to be medical professionals, and yet the percentage that don't want to wear a mask, even in a classroom, is kind of astounding.
We had discussions in our department, psychology, right? We're psychologists. We have social psychologists. How can we incentivize behavior? What can you do? What nudges can you do even, to incentivize the behavior? And we tried that, please, to, thinking about small children at home, vaccinated, otherwise vulnerable.
People.
Yeah. As best as I remember, nobody noticed. I mean, again, this was just anecdotal in the end. They weren't really doing real experiments on it, but.
So there was a Reddit thread. It was the start of last semester where somebody had asked, what class are you in and what percentage is masked? And it was astounding because it was, this is obviously self-reported and anecdotal, but when you looked at business and economics and international visit, very low mask wearing, and then you have social sciences were somewhere in between, and then there was social workers were 90 to 100% mask wearing, and the art and music people were much higher. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, can we correlate, tendencies for being a sociopath with mask wearing tendencies, right? The business world versus the social sciences versus, social workers wearing masks. That makes sense. That attracts a certain personality.
Yeah, I don't think I would say sociopaths, but probably kind of people who more ascribe to what would typically be considered more conservative ideals, like individualism.
Yeah.
And kind of higher at those types of traits.
Yeah. Sociopaths got me a lot, though.
Lower in conscientiousness.
Yep. Social awareness, social conscience. Yep. Empathy. Yeah. Yeah. But sociopaths got me a laugh, so it's worth it. Yeah, and it's this is nurses and pre-med, and so if you hold both buttons, you can get rid of the dog, the squat walk.
You're seeing me struggle with the wheelchair.
I am.
I cannot get that wheelchair guy.
He's a spry wheelchair.
So fast. And then he goes, oh my goodness.
Man, selfish poopy heads. You are absolutely correct. Mr. Big in the house. So my major contribution to this game and why I have the record is I learned that, when he does that inchworm thing, if you blow him up and despawn him off the left side of the screen, he doesn't do that, and it saves you about 15 seconds. And I discovered that through scientific method.
Experimenting.
Yep. Experiment, observation, hypothesis. Yep. So yeah, I like to correlate gameplay with science. Because it is.
Then it's your job, right?
Yeah. No, the rules in this universe are not the same as mine, so I really need to understand it. So are there any games, there's a push in chemistry, and I talked to Walter Boot about this a little bit, there's this push to try to gamify science learning, right? To try to make it, fun and interactive. And your discipline is mean, much more interested in like learning outcomes, learning games, things like that. Is that? I know Walter's working in that area. Is there a general push towards anything like that?
Yeah, there is. Reading games a little bit, but especially math games, because like informal math learning has been shown to be pretty important. So that's like not explicitly taught in school, but like talking about numbers with your kids, and that's thought to be kind of the equivalent of like reading to your kids, for reading. So there's a push towards, like what games can we come up with that are good for like basic math content that are fun to play.
So rockets for him.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
Oh, I see. Okay. No worries.
I know it looks like.
It looked like bullets. I'm mistaken. No, it's like a 3-frame tap. I understand. Oh, there's a jump shot. Nice.
I did not mean to do that.
Beautiful, though. Is better or worse than Mario?
This is worse.
You're absolutely correct. Mario is one of the all-time classics. No one can talk shit about Mario.
I got it.
Nice. All right.
Just by chance.
Now he's going to turn into a gold card, and you can collect it. That's not even the worst boss of this game.
No.
Are you ready?
Oh, no.
Here comes second phase, Mr. Big. Last minute questions. We have about 6 minutes left. I'm happy to intervene whenever you get frustrated, because I will recommend going to the top of the screen, and you have to jump and rocket him in the hat. So the jump shot.
Hey, I don't even remember how to jump.
So that is the second phase of Mr. Big. After he left his wheelchair, that's what he turned into.
Why does he keep being right on top of me?
Yes. So the arcade version was much better than this one. This is what we're left with when Nintendo got a hold of it. Also, it's an 8-bit system, so it's non-trivial to program that much information. All right, the questions have completely dried up in chat. It is late. We're on to Narc.
Yeah.
It's kind of how we close the night. Would you like me to get him to phase 2 for the sake of time, or do you want to keep grinding it?
No.
All right, so this is... There you go. There's phase 2.
Oh my gosh.
Now it's bullets on his spinal cord. So if you hold down A, you have to like walk away from him. It's timing on the XY position plus when you pull the trigger. But more importantly, by the end of the night, you'll be able to say you won the war on drugs.
I mean, it directly follows you.
Yeah. No, it is a character. Oh, all right. Is there anything we didn't cover that we should have? Man, it was fun. We got some general questions about interested in your program and what classes, because that's something we don't usually touch on. I mean, so if somebody wants to read casual about, twin studies, and I know there was a movie we talked about last time with the triplets, that was a very extreme case.
Oh, yeah. Identical Strangers?
Yeah. Is there a casual read you'd recommend to somebody interested in this area?
Yes. There's a book two books came out in September in my field by kind of brilliant women in my field, actually. And one of them, you're going to laugh because I forget the name of it every time, even though I'm literally reading it right now. The Genetic Lottery. That's what it's called. Yeah. By Professor Paige Harden. And so that's a good one. And
go right. You have one more door to go through.
Okay. And then the other one, if you're interested kind of in what behavioral geneticists say about parenting, then you can check out I think it's called the Parenting Code by Professor Danielle Dick. Child Code. That's
Child Code.
Yeah,
there we
Child
go.
Code.
All right. We're going to plug Amazon because, Twitch. Might as well. So this is civil forfeiture, the level. No due process. You're just taking gold.
Oh.
That is it.
No way, you just do that?
Yeah, that's the level. It's literally just collecting gold from the person you just murdered. So it perfectly exemplifies the war on drugs.
Yeah. And that's the end of the game?
That is it. It is over. Congratulations. You've completed the NARC training mission. Contact your local DEA recruiter. Yeah, this game was written by Nancy Reagan. That is it. So you can put your initials in, or if you put in ass, it will double your score.
No, it will not.
It will.
Well, how do I not put in ass? Is that literally what it always is?
Oh, no, that is, yep.
How do you press end?
And, yep. And that's it. Congratulations. You beat NARC. You won the war on drugs, and you did it in 26 minutes and 25 seconds.
I am one of the worst?
No, we've had 35 minutes or so.
Okay.
So, no, 26, you're pretty middle ground. I think our record for a guest is 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then the world record is 9 minutes and 24 seconds.
That's yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like how you just refer to it as the world record.
The
like
world record.
It's not
I
just
mean,
your
nobody else
record.
plays this game but me, but that's fine. I'll take
The
credit.
entire world.
Exactly. No one has been better at this game than I am, for what that's worth. Cuddle Puppy, easy win, easy life. Absolutely. Everyone, thank you for joining us at Ask a Scientist Gaming. It's a pleasure. Yeah, in 2 weeks, we'll have Mike Shitruk on. Mike is an inorganic chemist. He does molecular magnets, and he has stuff like thinking about quantum computing and how you make molecules be quantum computers. But also you can use molecular magnets for refrigeration purposes, which is kind of an interesting phenomena. So 2 weeks, join us again. Mike Shitruk will be on. But it's been a pleasure having everyone join us. Sarah, any parting words for the audience?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Check out the books we mentioned as well as Sarah's stream. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on again. Victories. You beat Mario 3. You made it pretty far.
Oh.
You beat NARC. You won the war on drugs.
I won the war on drugs.
So
I feel pretty
you
special
can
about
now
that.
share this clip with everyone.
Yeah.
So everyone, again, thank you for stopping by. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks, but it's always a pleasure. The audience is what makes this a lot of fun for us.
Yeah,
So
thanks, everyone.